Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am your host, Apostate Aladdin, and as always, we are taking callers today. I'm taking callers from all sorts of backgrounds, so if you would like to join as a caller, the link is pinned to the live chat. So, welcome to what is essentially, from what I've seen, the best call-in show on YouTube. I'm just kidding, but also not really. I feel like I've been a bit too humble about this for a while, and yes, we can always use improvements on this show, and I'm happy to hear any suggestions you might have. I believe that this has been a great space for people to call in, whether you're a believer or a previous believer or a never believer. I think that we provide a good location. No, location is not the right word. A good environment to foster healthy conversation around this topic. So if you would like to participate, please do click that link in the live chat. And if you're here to watch and listen to other people call in, welcome, and I'm glad you're here. So it seems like we already have a few callers who are ready to join. So we're going to take them one at a time. Looks like we have a healthy mix of backgrounds today. So hopefully the caller Tau Nation is ready. Let's hear him out. I hope you're ready because I'm adding you to the live call now. Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hey, how's it going, Aladdin?
I'm good. What about yourself?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. Please tell me a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to call in today.
So, I was actually born into a Jewish family. I'm not going to mention my last name, but our last name is supposed to be from Jacob, and I did a little DNA test, and I am from that area. And ever since I was a little kid, I had like odd dreams. They led me places, and it's supposed to be coming to a head. And this last year, I've done nothing but research between all of the texts, from the Poetic Edda to the Torah, the Gospel, the Quran. I read through the Tao Te Ching. I read through anything I could get my hands on, really. And I noticed that there's a lot of connections between everything. Like, one of the things that is kind of odd that I noticed when I was studying the Quran was the exact advice that the angel Gabriel gives Muhammad is the tenets that Aleister Crowley bases his religion on.
Who is Aleister Crowley? I'm not familiar with that person.
Oh, okay, no problem. So Aleister Crowley was a giant occultist that was known throughout the era of World War II. He was actually said to have met Hitler before Hitler rose to power. And in one of his journals, it was said that he told Hitler that he would not be defeated unless he allowed himself to be surrounded on all sides. That being said, it's been rumored that like George Bush and a lot of the American presidents actually are descendants of, since then, have been descendants of Aleister Crowley, and that basically like the Nazi Party at its highest forms were following that, as well as when people talk about the
hold
white
up. Let me pause you for a second. This is getting a little bit into the realm of possibly conspiracy theories and things that I wouldn't know anything about. So I'll just have to stop you before we go down that route. So what is it that, so you said you found connections and you saw that there's connections between, or similarities between what Gabriel tells Muhammad and what he tells that other guy, or what that other guy uses as foundation for his religion.
Yes. Yes.
How does that strike you as odd? Or why
Because
does it strike as odd?
Because that would mean that the exact tenets that the Muslims, or the modern day Muslims at least, that follow Muhammad are following are technically satanic tenets, because that's what Aleister Crowley was supposed to be. He during his
hold up. So
writing,
that Alistair guy, he lived at some point in the past 100 years, right?
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
So is it so out of the question that he could have borrowed some ideas from a existing religion like Islam?
I believe that he borrowed from a lot of the religions.
Right. So if it's possible, I mean, I feel like you're looking at it backwards. You're thinking he has a religion that you say may have to do with like Satan somehow. Therefore, it indicates that similarity indicates that Islam also has to do with Satan somehow. Why isn't it the other way around, that this guy said a bunch of stuff allegedly, but also he said stuff that happened to be in Islam because he's heard it before?
No, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, but what I'm saying is he went through the entire Masons. You know about the Freemasons, right?
Again, I feel like that's going into a little bit of the realm of conspiracy. So let me ask you this then.
Okay.
What do you believe when it comes to God and religion?
When it comes to religion, that is something that I feel like is a tool. Like, I don't feel like exactly religion is God's word, if that makes sense. However, I believe that God's word exists within religion. Does that make sense? And as far as God, I feel like God is the creator as well as a part of everything as a microparticle, if that makes sense. Because when describing God, God is supposed to be the Trinity that everybody talks about with the Father and the Holy Son. The Holy Spirit comes from an older version of a Trinity where God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, meaning that he is all powerful, he is all knowing, and he is all present. And it would be all knowing and all powerful because he is all present, meaning that God is within everything and everyone.
So the descriptors of God, these ideas that you have about God, what is their origin?
As far as like text origin, or as far as being able to prove that it's true?
I mean, in your life, where did these ideas originate from?
Okay, yeah. I mean, if I can speak within my life, yeah, that's fine. So I've had, like I said, when I was younger, I had a lot of dreams that they just lined up constantly in real life. Like, I would go to school and I would be able to tell people things like before they said them, and then there would be certain times where like I would know something is going to happen, and it was kind of like Final Destination, where I'd pull someone out of like the thing. But like then there's also like I would tell people things they would happen years before they would happen, they would come true. And the most recent thing about this was I told a few of my friends that when I was 32, a drastic change was going to happen in my life. And I told them this between 30 and 32. When I was 32, I got into a car accident, and in the car accident, I thank God for being alive. When they did this, they had thought that I was on drugs, but when they did the drug test and everything, and I went to court later, they found out there were no drugs in my system, so it got put down to a reckless driving. However, during all of that is when the Freemasons approached me, and it was the weirdest thing ever. And I get you don't want to talk about conspiracies, so we don't have to get into that.
Okay, let me ask you this then. How do the people around you react to those events in your life?
It depends on who it is. Some people definitely are like, whoa, that stuff has happened. You know what I mean? I haven't witnessed it firsthand. It's crazy. But then I have like the person that I live with. They've seen these things happen multiple times because they've known me over 10 years. And at this point, they just say, I don't have an explanation for it. I know he's connected with something. I have no idea what it is.
Okay. And how does it, well, I'm trying not to deeply investigate your, because I have no way of investigating what you say has happened to you. So I don't want to ask you questions to accuse you of anything. So rather, I want to know how you feel about those beliefs that you have, those events that you say happened to you. How does it feel like to tell me these things, knowing that I probably don't believe that it actually happened, and many people probably don't believe the same thing? How does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel like any kind of way negatively, I guess, what would be expected. Like, how dare you not believe me? This has been my life experience, yada, yada. Because to me, some of the things that have happened, like, you don't believe that? I'll tell you something crazy, or just one thing that happened. Light came out of my hands, and my dog barked at it, and the cat meowed at it, and they went and laid down next to it, and they hate each other. Like that happened to me with human witnesses and animal witnesses, and I still, to myself, wake up sometimes like, did that really happen? So am I upset that you don't you don't believe it because it hasn't happened to you? No, because I can't say I would believe it if it hadn't happened to me.
Do you think there's a way that you can document these events so you can, if you want to, show to people that these things are actually happening to you?
I feel like, I mean, if I had recorded things when I was younger, I'm sure I could have. But I feel like with the way that the world is going, it's going to be very obvious that these things are happening to everyone soon, because it's been, I mean, it could all be fake. But there's just been so many things in the news recently about end time stuff and people encountering spirits, and then, you know, the UFOs things that the government just disclosed, which was a conspiracy theory for the last 50 years and now is just openly fact. But, you know, I just wanted to really know your position on, like, how do you feel about, like, the things in the world happening right now that are kind of both biblically and in the Torah, you know, prophesized about? Like the River Euphrates drying up, the earthquakes and the locusts and all that appearing everywhere. Like, what's your take on that?
So that's a good question, and I want to answer it, but only if you promise me that we'll get back to another question that I have for you after that.
Yes,
Sounds
sir.
Good? All right.
You're so, boss.
All right. So I've heard similar questions from believers of other religions, and namely the one that comes to mind is Islam, because some of the signs, some might even be exactly the same, like the Euphrates River, or some other signs that they say are happening, and they're signs of the Day of Judgment coming up. It's kind of like rapture is almost here. It's the same concept. And to both of these, I mean, to me, it resonated with me more back when I was a believer, back when I was a Muslim believer, the stuff that I hear about the end of times from Islam. But when I heard it from Christianity or some other religion or anyone making these claims, to me they all sounded just as, I mean, out there, to put it nicely. But as a Muslim, I felt like there was some credibility to my own religion's claims of the Day of Judgment coming. But now as an outsider, they're all just as unlikely to me. So some of these signs, I mean, when you want to assess a prophecy, do you put on it a time limit? Like, if I were to prophesize this is going to happen today at this specific time, that might be impressive. But the way that a lot of these prophecies work, it's just a generic, you know, some kind of prophecy like, oh, rivers are going to dry up, and that seems to happen seasonally all the time, or there's going to be a bad crop and that happens, you know, or something metaphorical that can be interpreted as something that's currently happening. That has happened for thousands of years now, and every generation thinks we're almost there. We're so close to the Day of Judgment or rapture, or whatever it is. I feel like if these signs back in the days of believers 1,000 years ago, they too thought that the signs were there, that something is just about to happen, and nothing bad happened at the time. So how do we know that this is actually it, and this is not just a repetition of playing on humans' anxiety? You know, the prophecies aren't really well defined. They're just open-ended and vague, and they seem to fit all sorts of times, and nothing has happened so far. So to me, it doesn't really make me feel any type of way about the validity of those claims, if that makes sense.
It does, and the only question I would have attached to that, which I feel like you kind of already touched on, but you didn't confirm or deny the question, is, do you think if it's not God, that it's possible that people with very advanced science are making these things happen to drive people's anxiety to control the narrative?
No, I think that it's much simpler than that. I think that there are people who have interests that go against the interests of humanity at large. For example, people who hoard wealth. That's just universally not a good thing for the rest of the world. But they will continue to do it just because it serves their interests. I don't know that it's some highly coordinated conspiracy on every level like some people seem to think. I think that it's just a mix of bad things happening like they always do, and now we're just always aware of every bad thing that's always happening all the time. So if there's global warming is an issue, I don't know if you believe that it is or not, but if you believe that it's an issue, that's not because there's a group of, evil rich scientists who want to make it happen. It's just because there's a lot of wealthy people who don't care about how industrialization happens, and a lot of countries that desperately need industrialization that will not go green just because now the rest of the world decided to go green. So yeah, I think we're kind of reading into it and thinking of some coordinated attempt. I think it's just that humans are a big mess, and we've made it very, very far right now, and we're in an explosion of population and technology. So who knows where we're gonna go next? This is very unprecedented for humanity.
Agreed. So what was your question, Aladdin?
So my question was, going back to what you said something, and I'm paraphrasing here, along the lines of, with how the world is right now, we're going to start seeing these signs more, or people who see supernatural events or have supernatural experiences more and more, like yourself. And you said, of course, some of them might be fake, or we can't really know. So if you were to see someone on social media relaying experiences similar to yours, or even showing some kind of video or something, how would you determine whether it is fake or real?
See, now that is something that I because that was an anxiety for me a long time ago. The question you just asked is a question I would ask myself. And a long time ago, one of the things that I read, I think I was 7 when I read this in the Bible, and it just it's why God was so cool to me, was through God all things are possible. So to me, it's possible that it happened, or it's possible that the person is lying to get attention for it. But if they are, God's going to handle it. So no matter which one is the truth, that's awesome. I hope that it did happen. But if it didn't, well, you have to take that up with God. So it's kind of like I accept it, but then I also accept that the person could be lying at the same time. But that's how I handle most beliefs, which is why I kind of get in this stasis of knowing but not knowing. Like, the old Buddhist thing that I know that I do not know.
Well, if the person making the claim wasn't making the claim about God, say they made a supernatural or otherwise unexplainable claim and attached it to something else completely, would you treat it the same way, where you believe them and eventually God's going to prove whether they're right or wrong?
100%. 100%, because you got to remember how I look at God. I believe that God is a piece of everything. So whether they recognize it as God or not, through God, it is possible, even if it is a physical manifestation that calls himself Henry the Ghost. Because of how I look at God, everything is done through God. That's one of the reasons, I have these weird thoughts of, why does Satan exist? Because if God wanted to, he would just kill Satan. So Satan has a purpose. What's Satan's purpose? It's kind of that old thing. If the devil exists, it's because God wants the devil to exist. So why does the devil exist, and what is the lesson that is trying to be taught to you? I don't look at things as far as, good and bad, but why? I don't really look at things as good and evil anymore. I just look at why. Why is God doing this? Why is this being done? It has a lesson. There is something to be learned here. It's
funny how I'm partially in agreement there, where I too don't look at things as purely good and evil anymore. Also why, but not why did God intend it that way or do it that way? It's more like, why is it happening? I don't assume some kind of intention or plan behind it, or that this is why it happened that way all along. To me, it's just figuring out the factors that got things to where they are. So yeah, last question that I want to... God
more as causality than divine intervention, correct?
I don't know what God means.
Causality
in
would
context.
Be cause and effect. Causality would be cause and effect. This happened, thus this happened. There was no divine plan. It was just a series of actions.
Right. So you're saying I might be calling that God, or thinking of that?
No, I'm saying the way
God?
You view God, the way you view God, or the way you view our existence, the way that you view our experience is just based off of causality, correct?
Wait, let me think about that for a second. The way I view our existence is based on causality. I think I agree with that.
I'm just trying to figure out where you're coming from.
Yeah, I try to understand it through causality, but I can't always.
And then to me, anybody who believes in causality, I would say, well, what created the initial cause? What was the initial movement? That would be God. So to someone who believes in causality, God would have just moved and then everything else happened. And God did not cause it to happen. God just moved, thus it happened.
So
That would be more of,
why does God get that exception for causality?
because in the aspect that God is not planning for things to happen, God would be the first particle that went into movement, because everything is cause and effect. Thus, at some point, there was no cause, there was no effect, there was just emptiness. Something moved. When something moved, after that thing moved, things begun to happen, hence, quote unquote, the Big Bang. And technically, the Big Bang could be very easily explained as that the Big Bang happened when the first thing died, because before the first thing died, there would be no need for time, because things are just in a series of events causing each other to happen. But as soon as something dies, now time is relative, because now something has started and ended. Before something ends, there is no need for time.
Well, the last thing that I want to ask you about all of this is, I'm assuming that you will continue to want to know about God. How will you gain more information about God going forward?
The same way I've always done it. I like to meditate on pieces of knowledge that I'm given. Like, one of the first things that I did in this manner was one of my friends.
I got to pause you there. So where do you get those pieces of knowledge from?
Usually they're just given to me. Like, when I was young, it came from the Bible, and I meditated on things from the Bible to try to come to know what was in the Bible. And then after time, I guess you could say, under my context, God sent people to me as messengers to open my eyes into the next step. And, like, for instance, one of my friends told me a while, he was like, "You're so good at figuring out puzzles." And it was like, there's not a puzzle I've ever seen that really can defeat you, especially a mind puzzle. Figure out what AE means. I cannot figure out what AE means, but I know it's one of the keys to the universe. So I was like, okay. And I'm not going to say that it is this, but I found in meditation, it's the all eternal. That's what AE, when they talk about the aeons, the O, which is supposed to represent creation, motherhood, the womb, blah, 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 blah. When they talk about the aeons, they talk about the all eternal creator of now, aeon. But that's just me. That's just the understanding I've come to know through meditation. But, like, when I read the Bible, it said, don't take other people's words for God. Come to know God. That's what Jesus said. Jesus said that you're supposed to have a relationship with God. And I feel like that's what meditation is. God leading you to the higher knowledge.
Yeah, so you're saying you learn about God through meditation of the information that you're given about God. And this information seems to come from primarily Christian sources, is what you're saying.
It used to, when I was very young, and then it's, like I said, it branched out. Technically, aeonic knowledge would be classified more into the ethereal realm, which would go into the Poetic Edda, which is like Odin, Thor, Loki, hell, all of that.
So instead of Christian sources, then theistic sources about, that have claims about God, and your meditation of those claims is what gets you to information about God.
Yes and no. That's what starts me with my information, but then I go further in meditation. Sometimes it's in a dream. Sometimes it's just a scene. Like a dream I had 6 months ago that was very odd is, in my dreams, I'm always near infinite, but there was, for some reason, something...
I'm not sure if we have time to get into that one at the moment, just because we got to get to the next callers as well. So I want to ask you before you go, is there anything that you want to ask me or share briefly before we end?
Yeah. So I would just ask you, from your position, from what you've experienced in your life, what do you think the meaning of life is?
I don't think there's inherently a meaning to life. I think it's what you make of it. So, okay. I mean, what is the meaning of life for a leaf, on a tree?
I mean, I feel like it's the same thing that our existence is, to nurture each other. The leaf takes in our carbon dioxide and releases oxygen, and to me, that's the form of the leaf's love. You know what I mean? My personal belief is that our meaning in life is to love one another, to come to us, understand one another, and care for each other.
Yeah,
The
I
leaf
don't
on the
think
tree does
there's
that without being asked.
that's a good way to look at it. I don't think there's inherently a meaning to life. I think we assign it meaning, and if you're asking what the meaning of my life is, it's always a work in progress, and I'm discovering it. It's evolving all the time. But at the moment, it's the meaning of my life, or the purpose of my life, is to make the world a better place, and at the same time enjoy living. I don't know if that.
Well, God bless you on that.
Well,
yeah, God bless you on that. That's a good
that.
answer. That's a good answer. Well, Aladdin, it was great talking with you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, man. And I hope I get to catch up with you on another one of these sometime.
Likewise, yeah. Thanks again for calling, and take care, and have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. You too.
Bye-bye. Yep. All right. Thanks again to the caller. So I've seen some comments are a little dismissive. Again, I remind you guys, it's the point of these calls isn't to put someone in the spotlight and ridicule them for what they believe. It's to try to understand what they believe and why. I mean, that used to be more clearly the theme of my conversations, but I still try to keep that in mind when I'm talking to someone. And I still had some questions, but I do have other callers to get to, but I was interested in the conversation. So yeah, thank you again to the caller. Let's see who we got next. So, give me a moment while I figure this out. In the meantime, is there anything interesting happening in the comments that I have missed? Muhammad is asking, how can we participate? There's a link pinned to the live chat. Please click that link. You just need to have a Discord account, and you'll go through a quick verification process to make sure that you're a real person who would like to join this call, and then you will be able to join this call. All right, so who is next? We've got Don Data. Hope Don Data is ready. Hey Don, how's it going? Can you hear me? They are muted at the moment.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Damn, that's crazy. Yo, I just started watching your channel last week, man. So to get on this call, it's cool. But I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining, and thanks for watching the channel.
Sure.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you'd like to talk about today.
Oh man, it's crazy. Man, so really I'm an ex-Muslim.
Okay.
In the closet though. And I grew up in America. My family's African though. So I'm in America I'll be considered black. But I also don't have a father in my life, like a lot of other black kids in America. So just coming up, I have an identity crisis. Because like I said, no father. I'm not black, I'm African, but at the same time I'm Muslim. And I'm growing up around a lot of different cultures, man. So a lot of my family over here too, they're not Muslim. So being around them growing up, I mean, I don't really have to go into depth with the belief about non-Muslims. You know what they say, they're going to hell, stuff like that. So it kind of conflicted me at a young age, since 5, 6, 7. These are the people I'm with every other weekend, and on another day I'm reading that they're going to hell, this and that. And yeah, it just conflicted me, man, growing up. Seeing my mom interact with my family, seeing my brothers doing the same thing. I'm yo, are we wrong or are they wrong? What's going on? So really, I've been questioning Islam my whole life. Like I said, living in America, you're around a lot of different cultures. But really, last year, there was a woman, she asked me about Aisha and about Aisha and Muhammad's marriage. So when she asked me that, I'm I don't know what you're talking about. And then she was she got married at 7, I think it's 6, right?
Yeah.
Or is it? Okay, yeah. So she got married at 6 and they did the thing at 9. I'm yo, that's crazy. I didn't know about none of that. They never taught me that. So from there, I just started going in into my research like even more, and I'm like, man, it's just like it gave me like a lot of cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really trying to accept this, but it's right in my face. Like somebody came right in my face and showed it to me. It's one thing like if you live in a Muslim country and everybody's playing along, like nothing's happening, but it's different when you constantly questioning it and then somebody put that question in your face, like what you gonna do now? So yeah, that's why I'm at the point right now. I'm not even I'm not even believing in that.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you're going through that. I know it can't be
No, it's
easy.
great. It's great because it's great. I'm not for I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to say it's great because like I'm aware, you know,
Yeah.
like
No, and I don't just mean the this transition or this awareness, but also the identity crisis part of it. Um, Even before losing your faith, I'm sure it wasn't easy to have this, multiple hats that you feel like you gotta wear or you can't or can wear. Are you American? Are you African? Are you African American, so to speak? Like, are you black? Are you Muslim? And now things might be a bit easier once you've passed that you know questioning stage. But you had mentioned that effectively you kind of been questioning for a long time, maybe, or you had questions for a long time. Did you, when you were thinking about disbelievers going to hell, all that kind of stuff, did you think possibly that the religion could not be true?
man, this is what I'm gonna tell you. So I remember like when I was like 5, 6 years old. So I got two brothers, two half brothers. I'm the only child of both of my parents, but like I said, my dad he left a long time ago. But I was basically like staying with my half brothers and then my mom. But she was always working overseas. She speak Arabic, so she was translating for a company that worked with the Marines. So she'd be in the Middle East, Iraq, Kuwait, all that type of stuff. But yeah, so my brother he would be telling me about this like heaven, hell, and I remember like vividly. I was like 6 years old, and he was talking about heaven and hell. I don't know why. And he was like, good people go to heaven. He was like, bad people go to hell. I'm like, what's hell? You know what I'm saying? I'm 6 years old. I'm like, is there games over there? Like, what's going on? He's like, nah, people burn over there. People do that. People, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gonna suffer, get tortured. Like, I can't even think about that because I'm like, I can't comprehend it. I'm like 6 years old. You feel me? And that was like the first time I'm like, okay, I'm Muslim. I know about this, but I have friends who are Christian. You know, like for example, I know I'm kind of going on a tangent, but in Christianity they teach that Satan was an angel at one point in time, right? But I remember one time we were at the mosque and it was like a big class, and the imam was talking about like he was just basically teaching us about the angels and everything. And he asked that question like, name one of the angels, and I'm like, Shaitan, because in my head, like in Christianity, like they say Christianity, the Christianity and Judaism, they're like the people of the book. So I'm like, okay, we got similarities. They believe in Adam and Eve. You know what I'm saying? We should probably believe that Shaitan was an angel too. So I remember I said that with the most confidence, right? Everybody in the masjid laughed at me, man. I was the most embarrassing moment ever. But that just furthered my questioning, like, yo, what's going on? Like, am I wrong? Is he wrong? Like, what the hell is this shit? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean to cuss, my bad, but this is how I feel sometimes.
It's all right. But at the time when you heard, like you're saying, your brother told you about hell, bad people go to hell. You're a Muslim, you have Christian friends. Are they going to hell? All these questions. Did you think, is it possibly not true that Christians or non-Muslims go to hell, or did you just accept it and then think about it as a fact?
I was quiet. I was just quiet about it. I accepted it outwardly, but I was quiet about it inwardly. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's almost like innately, I know how it is if you talk too much. You know what I mean? I know how it is if you talk too much and you start attacking people's identity, because I see it firsthand. Like my mom, like I think about this all the time. If I was to tell her what this religion really is, it could kill her for real. You know what I'm saying? Because it's almost like that's all she got now. That's her identity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like innately I knew, like, all right, I could say what I want inside or to other people, but I can't say this around, like, you know what I'm saying? Hardcore believers. It's almost like you got to measure the temperature before you bring certain things around them. So no, I didn't believe it. I'm like, yo, like, either we're going to hell or they're going to hell based on one of our beliefs. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm like, yo, all of this is like, it's like a fairy tale. You feel me? Like, it's no different than the Marvel characters or the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all just like it's all made up.
It's did you think of the non-Muslims and non-Christians? Was that a thing that you read into in your life?
Can you say that again?
So you were thinking of your Christian friends. Did it also occur to you, what about people who are not Christian and not Muslim?
Yeah. So like I said, I used to actually live with my cousins at one point in time. They were Christian, but it's not like they were actually Christian. They just went to church on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean? So sometimes we would have conversations and they would be in the same boat as me, just on the other side. You know?
Mm-hmm.
They can't really say what they're feeling because their parents' whole identity is attached to their religion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I live in a college town right now, and you know I'm seeing all types of people, and I'm having this conversation with them too. The first time that actually the first person that ever actually really opened my mind was when I was in middle school, and the girl, she was practicing Wicca, so she was a witch, and she was open and proud about it. She had a pentagram on her wrist and everything. I was like, yo, what you know what I'm saying? What you doing? She was like, I'm a witch. I'm like, okay. She started telling me about it and stuff. But the thing with me that I could say is different from other people is when I'm questioning people, it's not like I'm coming from a sense of arrogance. You know, that's what the religion kind of teaches you, is that you're better than everybody. Or a sense of pride, yo, I'm looking down on people. I was actually curious and just having conversations with her, it's like she a regular person. You know what I mean? She's a regular person just like me, that has needs, that has wants. She's not hurting anybody. So for me to hate you or to condemn you to something, I'm like, yo, I can't even do that. And
Did you first start talking to her when you were a Muslim?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been questioning this my whole life, but it was probably around 7th grade. I'm 22 now, so it was around when I was 14.
Okay. That's interesting. I've never met a witch before, so I'm kind of curious about what they believe, but if they happen to call in, I'll have that conversation with them. But anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No, you're good. Yeah, I was just saying, like I said, I was just really expanding my knowledge too. Not to go on a tangent again, but a lot of stuff that the previous dude was talking about is part of occult knowledge. That's hidden knowledge. So I'm not going to go on that route, but I realized this, in America, you know, the slavery that existed over here was from Christians. You know, it was from the Christian slave owners, and they only let the slaves read the Bible, their modified version of the Bible. And, you know, Islam has slavery too. But it just dawned on me, yo, these people are not stupid, or else they wouldn't have this much control. So it wouldn't make sense for me if I wanted that type of power to be practicing the same religion as the people that I'm controlling. I feel like that goes across all boards, regardless of religion. So that made me think about okay, why is the people in Saudi Arabia, they have so much power? The college town I'm living in, yo, all the Arabs, man, they driving the flyest whips. They're doing all that, you know what I'm saying? They got the most money. But I'm like, how are these people at the top practicing the same religion as me? And I'm here, you know what I'm saying? And they're up there. So I'm like, like the other dude said, it's a tool. It's a movie called The Book of Eli with Denzel Washington. And in that movie, he's a blind man. And he has a book that he's trying to carry across America. And there's a guy that's doing everything in his power to kill him and take that book from him. It turns out that that book was the Bible. And the premise of the movie, the metaphor is basically like religion is used to control people. And that's what I believe. Like, also I took psychedelics before. I took mushrooms. And when I took that, it just expanded my mind even more and just made me realize like all of these barriers that we create is just used to divide us.
Wait, I got to pause it for a second here. And just to tell the viewers, on this show, I'm not condoning that anyone would go out and try any medication that is not prescribed to them or any substance that is not prescribed to them. So be very careful with that kind of thing. And I'm not endorsing the caller's experience, but I would still like to hear about it. So anyway, please carry on.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely not condoning that either. That's not, if you're not ready for that, like it will open your mind. But yeah, so I did it and like, it just showed me like, we really create barriers and everything. And it just divides us. It keeps us in a state of chaos instead of a state of harmony. Like if you see a zebra and a lion in nature, if the lion's not hungry, it's not going to kill it. But us, we always in a state of chaotic confusion, and religion is just one of those things that keeps us separate. Like a us versus them mentality. Like I was talking to somebody, right? One of my friends, he's in a gang, right? In America. And the way that he describes it is no different. Like when I tell you it's no different than Islam, I'm like, yo, that's so crazy. Like,
can you give us a similarity?
Yeah. So they have their own language. They have certain days that they consider quote unquote like holy. They have a certain attire. They have certain creeds that they live by. They carry themselves a certain way. Like it's not as barbaric as we like to assume, because I mean, if we assume that from the outside, it'll make it easier to condemn it, But when you actually realize it, it's tribalism, And Islam is like a big tribe in a way. So I was explaining that to him, and then as I was explaining it to him, I'm like, yo, it's kind of the same, Right. That's what I think.
I think there's a lot of similarities between large groups. Like I don't want to straight up call Islam a gang, but
no, I feel like it's tribalism though. Like it's kind of like a tribe.
Yeah, and the things that bond a group of people together, the mechanisms, the activities, the way of thinking, it works the same way in a lot of high control groups like religions, like cults, like maybe gangs as well. So there's a lot of similarities there for sure.
Yeah, and they don't call themselves gangs; they call themselves brothers and sisters.
You're talking about street gangs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call themselves brothers and sisters. I'm like, man, it's crazy. But yeah, man, like I'm just glad I could tell somebody else about this, because like I said, my family, I don't even want to tell them about this, because it's just like, I'm already like the black sheep of my family, But something like this, which I don't really care. Eventually, like, I'm gonna drift out on my own, but I'd rather ease into it, Because you know how it is. Like, I don't know. It's just a different way. Like, I was explaining to one of my friends. He's not Muslim or a believer or anything, but I was just explaining to him, like, when a Muslim leaves a religion, the type of shame he usually gets or she gets from the people around him it could be really disheartening, because it's people that you would think is really there for you, but it's just a religion that kept y'all close. It's not really like a human to human connection.
Well, if we could replace that religion connection with something else, how would you form that human to human connection?
So like I said, innately, I've already been doing that, because I've been approaching people with a sense of understanding. I want to understand you, understand why you do what you do, where it came from, and really like genuine understanding, not trying to understand you so I could bash you or trying to understand you so I could hate you. You know what I'm saying? Really like understand your motives, understand why you do what you want to do. Like, what's your childhood like that led you to be this person that you are today? You know, because like nowadays everything is so surface level, and it's really easy to judge somebody just based off their appearance, based off of their based off of the way they speak. Like if you were to see me in person, you wouldn't even think I'm Muslim. You wouldn't even think I came from that background. But if somebody was to approach me with a sense of genuine curiosity and they want to genuinely understand me, then it would come out naturally, depending on how I feel. But I feel like that type of stuff has to be taught at a young age, because you know, growing up, every child is not judgmental. Like you could be around anybody as a child, any other child, I mean, and not really look at the surface. You're looking at their soul, you know? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you do though. Like we come into this world non-judgmental. It's just we're taught that.
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand from the parents' perspective thinking that they know how the world works and they know what they need to teach their child. But it might lead to people being too closed-minded about things, and the intention behind it from the teachers isn't because I mean, sometimes it is, but it's not necessarily because they want their kids to be closed-minded. They just think that there's no need for open-mindedness because that may lead them the wrong way. So I think maybe it's a bit of arrogance that parents think that they know what's best for their child, and it's a bit of care, you know, that they think they know how the world works and they want to communicate that to their child. But it's a beautiful thing when you grow up and you realize that you can understand the world all over again all by yourself. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I do want to say, like, being at this journey right now, like, it really made me forgive myself first and foremost, but then everybody else around me, like my mom and everybody else that tried to indoctrinate me into the religion, because like I know they weren't doing it from a sense of hate, you know, like in a twisted way. It was their sense of caring. Even though I don't agree with it, it's their sense of care, you know? And because I understood that, it made me understand like why there was things like the Crusades. That's a dark time in history. Or like the conquistadors in Spain. Like they killed a lot of people. But I'm not saying I condone any of that. But I feel like it gave me a glimpse into what they were thinking, because they might have had that same type of belief that I'm just trying to help these people. I'm just trying to do this. I'm just trying to make sure they go to heaven. Or, you know, it's kind of like an ISIS bomber too. Like they're trying to spread I'm not saying it's right though, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
like it's crazy because we're all the same in that manner, but it's just the beliefs is different, and like nobody's gonna, you know what I mean?
I think I know where you're coming from, and I think I agree. With exceptions, I mean, there are people who are wired a little loose, so to speak, and that's just to say that, you know, they've got mental issues that have either developed through time or inherently biological. I don't know what the cause is. That happens. But a lot of just regular people might do or condone horrible things because the underlying reasoning, the underlying beliefs are bad. So, you know, the ends justify the means sort of thing. Like you and I might be against murder, but if you were to see someone who is trying to harm a group of people, for example, I think most of us would not be against stopping that person with any force necessary if unavoidable. Like the context matters, and sometimes that context is not true, but people think it is true. So if you think that the person that you're fighting or judging or condemning or whatever, if you don't do that, they're going to lead people to eternal hell, then it justifies whatever it is that you're doing or saying about them. So it doesn't always help to just say, look at how bad these people's beliefs are. It's good to understand them, because you might see eye to eye with someone from another faith, an extremist from another faith even, that at the end of the day, you both want prosperity, you both want peace. You just disagree on how to get there and what that means. So yeah, if you try to understand people, you'll see that you have a lot more in common, even with your enemies, than you think.
Yeah, for sure. That way you said like the means is usually different. It's kind of like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Like they don't teach about Martin Luther King and they don't teach about Malcolm X like that in America, like they do Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King, like he was more passive, you know. He was the one that just wanted to walk. You'll do the nonviolence walk and stuff. But Malcolm X, he's like, no, let's take action, because you know, like that type of mentality is different. But I say this too, like I realized on my trip on the mushrooms, don't do mushrooms if you're not ready for it. Disclaimer. That's to all the viewers listening. I'm not condoning none of that.
And my disclaimer is don't do any illicit substances at all. Anyway.
Yeah, don't do none of that. You're not ready. Yeah. But yeah, like that thing, it really it helped me conquer my fear of death, because like it was in my trip, I died for a second. And what I mean by that is like my ego died. Like my whole identity died. Remember how I told you, like growing up, I had all these different identity crises? Like whenever I was on my trip, there was a point in time, words are limited. I'll say that. I can't really tell you how I felt, but I could try to use words. It's like my whole identity just went away and everything went black. And in that instance, like I said, I realized we just making our barriers and stuff. We create our problems. We create these differences, and none of it really matters. But everybody's scared of the unknown, and that fear, tying it back to Islam, is why somebody wouldn't even question where these beliefs came from. They wouldn't even question, you know what I'm saying, who was Muhammad? What was happening in Arabia? What was the political motive? You know what I'm saying? Because once you start to question something, you're going to have a lot of other questions. And this is going to take you on a rabbit hole. But I feel like it stems back from fear, because if you build your whole identity around this thing, and one question leads to a whole plethora of questions that shatters your whole identity, then what you going to do? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the fear of the unknown, that's why most people won't even take that route. Unknown, unconsciously. You know what I mean?
No,
every religion.
You sound like you're at that stage now that you've smashed your sense of identity and you're rebuilding.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
Well, it's a journey, and it sounds like you're somewhere in the beginning of it. I mean, I also am, even though it's been a while, but it's always a work in progress. And yeah, I hope that you manage to find the identity that is most aligned with you. And if that just has to be you, based on you, rather than based on whichever culture or group of people is closest to you, then so be it.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like it feels like I'm a kid again. You know, I'm a child, but this time I'm the one that's influencing my environment instead of having people on the outside influencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. Well, yeah, you got any other questions for me? I don't want to keep going too long. I'm
not at the moment, but yeah, unless you have any for me, it was a very pleasant chat, and I'm glad that you found the channel, and I'm glad that you joined in today.
Yeah, so my question is, how would you deal with this situation? So, all right, so it was one of my friends, right? I asked him the question about Aisha too, right? And like, he didn't say it was right, but he was like, man, look at all the other stuff he did. He did so many great things. Why are we focused on that? And this is my friend for real. Like, I didn't even continue the conversation. But I don't know, how would you deal with that? Like, would you just like cut off religion talk immediately from the future, or?
I mean, I'm worried about giving you any sort of what would I do, because I don't want it to be construed as advice.
No, like I'm just saying, like if you were in my position, like I don't see him all the time, but this is just like somebody that I'm really cool with. We're not like it's not like we're not friends anymore. Like I'm always friends with him, but
Yeah. I mean, I'll
it
tell
just
you
kind of
how.
changed my perspective, you know?
Yeah, I'll tell you how that happened in my life. I'm not going to go into details, but in those situations, I avoided talking about the topic as much anymore, and it usually, I wouldn't be the person who bring it up anyway. But also, it felt like the damage was already done. Like, I didn't think of him or her as a bad person past that point. It was just like, it was sad to me that, oh, you're at that point in your mindset. It's not my job to fix that, way of thinking, or to make him face his cognitive dissonance, or hold his feet to the fire, or even ease him through all of that. I usually just let them be. That's his journey to go on. If he happens to come across a channel like mine someday and have a conversation like this, then that is great. But even in my personal life, I don't take that route, because it feels like a huge undertaking, and I feel like he has to consent to that kind of conversation. He should want it, not me getting him into that conversation. But I sort of more or less lose touch with that kind of person, because I feel like there's so much that we cannot see eye to eye on, that I just cannot feel close to them anymore. I wouldn't be their enemy or anything, but I don't think that it fosters a good relationship going forward. But I'm always open to them, like sometimes people like that come around and they turn out to be a very different person in a few years. But yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in. And for me, it almost just, it makes me sad that, okay, we're a very different kind of people. And I don't know how deep of a connection we can have past that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm feeling the same way. Like I'm like, damn, like it's like that. Not in a bad way, but it's like I thought in my head, I'm like, man, I wonder how deep it gets. That's what I'll be thinking in my mind. Like if it's just that, you know what I'm saying? What else is it? But yeah, that's how I feel with my family too. I'm like, man, I don't really know. I don't really know what else we could disagree on. But it's just like crazy because, another thing, I got nephews, and like they're young, but it just hurts me sometimes because I'm seeing it in the, what is it, the third person, how they're getting indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I can't really do nothing. I mean, if they chill with me, they come hang around me, obviously, like I could tell them some certain things, but it's almost like I can't really interfere with their life, because I'll be like causing chaos, which is not my place. But it hurts because I know the world they're gonna grow up in, especially like these next 20 years, everything's changing. But the teachings that they're getting, the indoctrination that they're getting, it's gonna really conflict with them worse with them than it did with me. So it just hurts me sometimes.
I feel your pain, and a lot of people say the same exact thing. I personally went through similar situations, whether it's children or adults, and it's just that you cannot be that one to change the trajectory of their life. Like, it's not going to go well for them, for you, and you feel powerless almost watching it happen. But rest assured that things are changing, and if you're always able to support, change in any way that you can, then try to do so. If you can't directly help them, then if you can help someone else who eventually might end up helping them, or making the world a more accepting place to people like them or like you, that is helping them. So I mean, part of why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is for the people that I care about, that I can't have these conversations with. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Just hang in there and just do your part, not with them necessarily, but just do your part in life in general, and it'll come back to them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I also want to say, man, yo, you got some balls, man, for real, coming on YouTube. I mean, I know you're not showing your face, but like, this is really hard to do. And
Well,
you're from an Arab background too. Like
yeah.
all the Arabs I've met, they're all Muslim. Even though some of them are quote unquote bad Muslims, they might drink here and there, they might do that other type of stuff, hang with girls, like they're still Muslim. But like you're different, and you got a lot of courage. I respect that because it's hard to come out and just, on top of that, be critical and really point out the flaws. It's almost like you're really the voice. Because you ever heard of a rapper named Lil Durk?
I can't say I have, no.
Okay, he's an American rapper, but they call him the voice of the streets in America. I'm saying and it's funny because he's Muslim too. That's another thing. They really propagating Islam over here, man. It's crazy. But yeah, you got like a lot of courage, man. I respect that because being critical of something like this, you know how it is.
I appreciate that, and I hope that as long as I can be, that I serve as a voice for some of us. I appreciate that.
Of course, no problem, man.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna let you go though.
Yeah. Thanks again
Nice
for joining. It was very nice talking to you as well, and hope everything goes well with you, and hopefully maybe we'll hear from you someday again. If not, either way, take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Oh wait, one more question. Can you take my name off of the YouTube?
Oh,
whenever my section comes on, I don't want my name there.
I don't know.
Is it possible?
I could do that, but it'll take maybe a day to take effect, and then it'll remove all the live chats if I do that.
I just meant like for a timestamp,
Yeah, you mean like from the screen?
Like how you usually have timestamps in the description?
Right.
Yeah, like I was just saying don't put my name there, like in the timestamp.
Sure, but your name is already on the screen.
Oh, it already?
Yeah.
Never mind. It's whatever.
You'll be all right, man. Don't worry. He didn't say anything too controversial or anything. No one's hopefully no one's going to come after you. But if it's really, really a concern, I could do that. Just know that, I mean, most views come in the first day anyway. So by the time that it's blurred, there's barely going to be any viewers.
All right.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day, man.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right. Thanks again to the caller. And we've got a bunch more to go. Thanks, everyone, for joining the queue. Let's see who is next. I've been trying to keep an eye on the comments at the same time, but nothing that I've been able to highlight after the call at the moment that I think is relevant before the next caller. Okay, so I'm taking, let's see, Rocky, I hope that you're ready. I'm adding you to the live call now. Hey, Rocky, can you hear me? You're muted, by the way. Let me know when you're here. Okay, Rocky might not be here yet, so I will move on to another caller in the meantime. Flower. Hopefully Flower is ready. Hey, Flower, can you hear me? You are muted at the moment. Okay. Still nothing. Let's try a different caller then. Let's try Mac.
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Sorry about that. I would like to apologize in advance if I sound really croaky. My voice is kind of broken because I have COVID.
That's okay. I'm wearing a mask, so we're all good.
Yeah. I just wanted to discuss some of the, I guess, superstitions you could say in Islam. Growing up, there are some like stupid shit that I got to go through. So, for example, I remember like taking a walk with my cousins outside in the backyard or something, and then the azan or the maghrib, it like went on, and then someone standing next to me said that to cover my head real quick because apparently the genes will fart on your head if you do not, like, if you're a woman, and the genes will fart on your head if you do not, like, cover up immediately, because and then I might get cursed. So stupid shit like that. And then I remember, like, trying to make a statue out of mud, and then my grandma, she barged in and told me to stop doing that, I guess, because apparently I will go to hell if I try to make anything that resembles like a human being. So I crushed the like clay structure immediately. And a couple
That
days
is odd,
later,
by the way. There's several superstitions that have to do with the devil urinating or defecating or doing something that has to do with, you know, their orifices. When you don't pray, or when you're not wearing the right thing during prayer, or if you don't get up, like there's so much of that. Yeah, someone's asking, how is Aladdin not weak right now? I guess I'm just not phased anymore. Like I've heard it so many times. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
yeah, that's fine. I also remember like trying to draw a picture, like it's like a pixie, and then it has face and everything, because of course pixies are like female like figures with wings. And then my cousin, she walked in, and then she said, "Hey, that's haram. You probably shouldn't do that." And I was like, but it took me a while to actually draw this. Like, one thing I faced during like my time as a Muslim, I felt that I was constricted artistically. If you mean, I'm a really huge art person. I'm a Pisces. Not that I believe in horoscopes or anything like that, but I'm artistic by nature. So I like to draw a lot. I like to paint a lot. My sculpture skills aren't really great. I didn't try real sculpturing. Thank you, Islam, for that. So I was doing this picture of a pixie, and then my cousin, she came in, and then she said that you can't do that. You're gonna go to hell. And then all of a sudden, my mom also walks in, and she's like, "How about you draw the picture first, and then ask Allah for mercy later?" And I was like, "Well, how is that supposed to work? How is that supposed to work? Isn't it haram in the first place?" Yeah, I did break rules as a Muslim too, like even in terms of following Islamic rules, but I wasn't a perfect Muslim. Like there are phases where I was more religious, and there were also phases where I wasn't as religious. So there's that.
I mean, your mom sounds kind of cool, where she's saying, yeah, just sin, but pray for forgiveness afterwards. I mean, that's a good compromise, I suppose.
Well, when she, like, sometimes when she prays in the car, my mom, she's not a hijabi, by the way. She doesn't follow every single rule of Islam. I remember, like, when she would pray in the car, she would, like, cover her head with a scarf, and then her arms would be exposed. I was like, "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" But since I'm an ex-Muslim, I don't really care, because when we die, I just know that I'm gonna rot under like 6 feet under. Nothing's gonna happen to me. All that matters to me is that I will live as a good human being on my time on Earth, and people that are close to me will remember me for who I am and what I did. And then since I don't really believe in hell, it just matters to me if the people close to me remember. I don't give a shit if other people don't remember me. Well, yeah, my mom, she used to be more cool when she was younger. She grew up singing. She was a great dancer too. My grandma was the same. But when she had me, she became much more religious. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So she actually didn't put me in a dance class. She didn't put me in a singing class. And I felt like that she kind of ruined the family legacy. I kind of felt like that she should have done that. Now in adulthood, I feel like that I missed out on so many things. Do you remember that friend of mine who like became an ex-Muslim when I like bombarded her with the hadiths and all that after having like a fight with me?
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It took her like a couple of days to leave Islam, and I was like, oh dang, why? It took her kind of few days to leave Islam. Why didn't I leave sooner? Like, after reading the perverted hadith, it took me like 4 to 5 years to leave Islam completely. So I did feel like that I missed out on my teenage years because I had to follow all these rules and that. And something that ticks me off about Islam is that the iddah period for women, when they have to
wait, I gotta pause you for a second. Well,
sure.
I mean, try not to think of it as missing out on your younger years being a non-Muslim, or the opportunity to not have been following Islam as a young kid, because realistically, it could have just caused you more trouble in your life if you were, that convinced from a younger age, and you were that opposing to what your parents are telling you to do. Like, maybe you just happen to maintain the peace for a bit longer, and now you're more capable of living your life as an ex-Muslim. But had you realized earlier, maybe it would have been more friction in your younger years.
Mm-hmm. I was talking about the Iddah period. I felt like it's really stupid how women have to follow like a Iddah period after like she get divorced and then her husband dies or something. Like, I cannot use like combs with like really thin spines and then can't wear perfume. It's not like where Muslim women are even allowed to wear perfume even when their husband is still alive. Like in public. It felt kind of stupid. I feel like that women like lose 3 months of their life because like her husband died. Like, there's no guarantee that guy treated you well. Let's say that like you're married to a really abusive husband, and he and then after you didn't divorce him, but then he dies, and then you still have to follow the period after his death, which is kind of stupid because that guy, if his wife dies, he can still like marry another woman like after 2 days or 3 days if he wants to. So I did like I definitely feel like
I mean,
Islam
even before the wife dies, he can marry another woman. That's
yeah, there's that, and then he can keep like mistresses and all that. The Quran that I read when I was young, I feel like that from Arabic to Bengali, some of the like the meanings of the original Quran got lost. I remember reading an ayah from the Quran which says that do not take any women as your mistress, only take in your wife. But at the same time, in the same Quran, in another ayah, in a different surah, it did say that it said that something about your right hand possesses. So I believe that is referring to female slaves. So you don't even have to ask your wife for permission to have sex with another woman or slave. So yeah, it's definitely a hell for
skewed.
women.
Yeah, it's skewed towards males, and
yeah. I do not want to mitigate the experience of men. I definitely feel like that Islam screws up men's lives as well, but I feel like it's a tad bit more extreme on the women's side.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Well, let me ask you this question then before we wrap up. How do you think we can improve things for women who aren't happy about the way Islam treats them, or women who are in the closet about not believing in the religion or are not sure about their beliefs? How can we help them?
Are you talking about women who like pretends to be Muslim and then they're still in the like they are not out there in public?
I mean, there's that category of ex-Muslim women, I suppose, but also women who are just Muslim and unhappy about the way that they're being treated.
What I would do is bombard them with hadiths. That's it. Like that's something I would do. Like,
but how would that make them feel better if they're already in a bad situation?
I actually don't have a good answer to this. If it's okay.
That's okay. I was asking you as someone who's like been through that. Like, what would you think would help you?
I guess wait for a while. Like get enough money to travel overseas for studying, or and then like wait for a good opportunity to leave as soon as you can. I know that if both of my parents were Muslims, my father is an ex-Muslim, by the way. He duped my Muslim mother into marrying him, but that's a story for another time. If both of my parents were Muslims, I would never come out to them as an ex-Muslim. Like, I would keep my mouth shut and wait for the right opportunity to get away from them as far as possible. Since my dad has my back, I do feel like that I have a better leverage than other Muslim women.
I'm happy that that's your situation, and I'm happy that seems like a smoother transition than many people go through.
Mm-hmm. I would also like to thank you before I leave. I salute your patience. I don't know how you deal with all these trolls. well, as a Muslim, I was a really hothead, and even as an ex-Muslim, I'm a hot-headed person. I'm not patient at all. I have no idea how you keep up with all the trash that you face on YouTube and every other social media. Um, hats off to you, and have a nice day.
Well, thank you, and I hope you have a great day as well. Take care,
Thank
Flower.
you. Bye.
Bye bye. Let me think about that for a second, because I get that pretty often, and I appreciate that kind of compliment. How am I calm? Yeah, I think I just don't take it personally anymore. It's just like some of the stuff that I was talking to the first two callers about, understanding why people behave the way that they behave. Everyone is an enigma. Everyone's a summation of a bunch of factors. No one is just an evil person who hates me and I should, I don't know what the word is, like squash the evil. It's just people are the summation of their experiences in their lives, and I'll just take it as it comes. And yeah, I hope that a book that I just recommended to members of my Discord server today is How to Have Impossible Conversations. And I do recommend that book if you would like to be better at having difficult conversations and not getting angry at them. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. So we still got a bunch of callers. Let's see who is next. Rocky Balboa, if you're still there. Well, not in the voice channel, so I can't take them. I hope that they join the voice channel so I can take them afterwards. Kepler, I hope that you are ready, because I'm adding you now. Hey, Kepler, can you hear me? You are muted, by the way.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Happy to have
I've
you.
been watching your channel for a couple of months. And I think it's really cool to have somebody who really articulates their thoughts in a really kind of calm and really well-informed manner. So I think it's really awesome that we have someone like you as part of like a ex-Muslim, like someone from a Muslim background who's talking about these topics. So yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you would like to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in predominantly Western countries. I come from a Muslim background, predominantly Muslim background. My family was quite religious growing up, but I would say they were not completely like conservative. I mean, we would listen to music, watch movies and stuff like that. So in that perspective, we were quite liberal, I would say. But I would say that the effects that religion probably had on my life was quite, I would say it was quite intense in terms of me being a very like shy and sheltered kid growing up. I didn't have a lot of friends. I found it quite difficult to make friends, actually. And Islam was kind of like a crutch for me. I was very much like a studious person. And my parents kind of like taught me a lot about Islam. And I kind of prided myself on having a lot of knowledge, I guess, about like, like the prophets, like, those books that they have geared towards kids. And now thinking back, I'm like, what the heck? Like, you literally have like, yeah, anyway, that's another topic. But yeah, I really kind of like prided myself on like having all of this knowledge about religion that a lot of other kids my age didn't have. And I also kind of applied that industry to other aspects of my life. So like I studied hard. I was just like a good kid in general. But I think as I started to grow older, I came to realize like, I guess the fear aspect of Islam, Allah is this kind of like this scary figure in the sky. He's always watching you. I mean, I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of the story of, um, I'm actually not sure if it's a popular story, but it basically goes like this: like a child basically is informed by their parents, like, here, I'm going to give you a bowl of candy, and like you can go anywhere in the house and eat it. Nobody's going to watch you. And then they go ahead and do that, and then one of the kids doesn't, and then afterwards, the one kid that doesn't do it says that Allah was watching me, and that's why it didn't eat the candy, or something like that, something along those lines. I'm not remembering it correctly, but
I've definitely heard a variation of that story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, it's like Big Brother is watching you, right? Like you're constantly being monitored by this dude in the sky, and it kind of, I guess, contributed to some of the mental issues I had as a child. I guess kind of OCD behaviors. At a certain point, every day when I was praying or if I was doing wudu, I felt like I was blaspheming. Like I was having like ruminations and stuff like that. So it definitely had a kind of like negative impact on me in that way, to know that I was constantly being monitored, and that if I ever took a step wrong, that I was going to be reprimanded for that. So yeah, that was pretty tough. I'm wondering if you can relate to that.
Oh, definitely. I still have patterns of thought that to this day stem from this idea that I'm being watched. Like I find that it's not even necessarily about doing something morally dubious. Just whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm thinking to myself, if someone was witnessing me doing this right now, my explanation or my justification would be so and so. And sometimes it's just the most benign things. It's because I'm used to this idea that every single thought, word, action, every second of my life is being recorded and watched by God and his angels and stuff. And it's hard to get over that. Even if when you stop believing in those things, you become that God, that obsessive God that's watching your own actions. I don't know if you relate to that.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly like what you said. And on top of that, the fear of hell, the fear that your whole life is going to be like video played back to you at the end of on the day of Qiyamah. That was just terrifying to me as a child. And I come from a family with like some very narcissistic individuals. So I grew up in that kind of an atmosphere of having a very like low self-esteem, constantly monitoring myself. So to add to that, this whole structure of religion, where the main figure of that religion is basically like this kind of like video camera. It was just absolutely, yeah, terrible. And it took me many years to come to the realization that, something is not right. I did constantly defend the religion in front of friends. I was made fun of being a Muslim in school, which is not a fun experience. But I would also say that I was just bullied in general as a child by pretty much like people from various backgrounds. It wasn't just exclusive to non-Muslims. I was bullied by a lot of Muslims as well. But definitely I would say that I really clung to my Muslim background as kind of like a clutch, even though it had these kind of deleterious effects on me. As a person with anxiety, as a person who really like felt like they were dealt a bad hand, prayer and just like believing that things would get better for me, even if not in this life, but in the afterlife, was definitely like probably the biggest draw for me, that kept me in the religion for such a long time. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that was your experience growing up. And I hope that, despite it being a bad experience, I hope that you learned something from it and it helped you become the person that you are today in a good way. And I want to ask you, with that no longer being in the picture, with that idea that someday you're going to be rewarded or Islam is going to help you through this, what do you use now to get through such difficult times?
Yeah, actually, that was kind of like the point of why I called today, was to talk about how I've kind of coped, or rather struggled with losing faith. I think a lot of people who call in, they talk about you know about the negative aspects of Islam, obviously, and there are so many, right? There's so many to count. It's just factually, you know, it just doesn't make sense. So there are just so many reasons, but the real difficulty for someone like me, who really kind of, I didn't really know the kind of negative. So, for example, the Aisha fact, or certain facets of Muhammad's character, those things were not made aware to me as a child. And so you grow up learning this kind of like rainbow version of Islam. And especially growing up like in the 90s, 2000s, when being a Muslim in certain contexts certainly became something to hide or not really like share for fear of being ridiculed. I definitely felt even more attached to Islam in that way. So coming to me leaving Islam, while I left for I guess a bunch of reasons. It didn't like, first of all, was my sexuality. I struggled with my sexual orientation for so many years. And I finally came to the realization that no, like there's really nothing wrong with me. Like I'm good. But there's something wrong with this book. There's something wrong with these teachings. And I tried to kind of like, still keep my attachments to Islam. But the more I learned, and then obviously learning about some of the more difficult aspects of Islam, I was like, okay, I totally can't do this. And I actually also left Islam because of what I learned about Judaism and Christianity at university, in history classes, actually. So that was kind of like a surprise for me, a shock for me, when I was learning about the ancient Near East, about the kind of links between all the various religions, and how culture is basically just recycling from one century to the next. So anyway, I can ramble on about that, but I guess I would say that leaving Islam was definitely a huge struggle for me. It's like I lost a way for me to keep my anxiety at bay. So my anxiety definitely got worse, I would say, after I left Islam. I've had to look for other ways to cope. Mindfulness has certainly helped, I would say. And just reading into other philosophies. I've been reading, I'm not sure if you've heard of Albert Camus, who is a philosopher who came up with this thing called absurdism. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with it, but it kind of makes sense to me that the universe is just, it doesn't really have meaning, and we kind of have to inject meaning into our lives while we're alive, because it's just, it's just what it is. We're here, we're present, and we have to make meaning in our lives, because there really isn't a meaning in the grand scheme of things. So that has actually kind of helped me to orient myself and to orient my life, to kind of deal with my struggles. I also love astronomy. I love to kind of like look out in the night sky and kind of like think about how stupid sometimes my problems are in the grand face of things. So I've kind of used different methods to deal with my struggles and kind of, um, lessen the void that Islam kind of left when I left the religion.
I recently I had an interest in astronomy. I always mix up astronomy and astrology. Astronomy, the one with the telescope, not the one with the, your luck for the day. So I hope that it also becomes some sort of relief and coping mechanism for me as it has been for you. So yeah, thank you for sharing with us your journey to here and how you cope with it once you've passed that point. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not a lot of questions come to mind right now because I hear you.
Yeah, and I would definitely say on the astronomy point, like if anybody is interested, there are so many amazing YouTube channels. If anyone is interested, there's one that I follow. I'm not sure if I can plug other YouTube channels here.
I mean, as long as they're not controversial, feel free.
Yeah, no, there's obviously there's Star Talk. I know a lot of people aren't really fans of Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he often brings on some really interesting people who work in physics, who work in cosmology, astronomy, who kind of make that kind of area of space science accessible to lay people. So if anybody is interested in learning more deeply about astronomy, I think it's really, really fascinating topic that definitely helps to kind of orient you and make you realize that, the Earth is a really special place. And, your life is what you make of it. And increasingly what I found is that the more years I spend not being a Muslim anymore and not really practicing religion, I'm better able to kind of incorporate these different facts of life, these different philosophies and whatever and whatnot into.
Thanks for the recommendations. I'll definitely check some of them out. And hey, are you still there? Might have cut out for a second there. Isn't Kepler the name of some... Is it a constellation or a galaxy or something? Don't quote me on that. Unfortunately, the caller's audio seems to have dropped, but someone...
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I did hear you. I actually can't remember who Kepler was. I think he was an astronomer, but don't quote me.
Someone's saying it's a star, a telescope, an astronomer. So it sounds like it was an astronomer and some things were named after him.
Yeah, no, I trust them. They must be right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to share or ask me before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like, so for example, the label of ex-Muslim, there's other people that I've talked to, and I don't know, people kind of bandy around the definition. Some people say it doesn't represent who I am. Some people say that it's too edgy. I don't know, people have like 100 million opinions on what it means to be ex-Muslim. Do you kind of struggle with the term? Do you, like, how would you define yourself? And yeah, I guess that would be my question.
Well, I gotta say, to anyone who thinks it's too edgy, I think that in of itself is a pointer to how necessary it is. If someone thinks that it's super edgy to just say, I used to be a Muslim, I'm not anymore, that should tell you something, that there's something wrong with this group of people who don't take kindly to someone leaving the religion. I don't think it's edgy whatsoever. I think it's unhealthy for someone to, once they've reached that conclusion that they don't believe in Islam anymore, it's unhealthy for them to model their entire presence around that label. But what happens more often than not is that when people are vocal about being ex-Muslim online, or the issues that they face as an ex-Muslim, or the issues that Muslims face, they usually don't do it from their personal accounts, with their face, with their, the rest of their personality. Like, I can't even, like, for example, say if I took a photo of the moon or a star or something, I would be worried about posting it to my viewers and everybody, because I'm worried I might dox myself. That would say something about where I am in the world, like, we have to think of that much about our safety and anonymity. So when people come out to talk about Islam, usually they do it from accounts that are only dedicated to that topic, and it gives the illusion that this person, just their whole existence is just about being an ex-Muslim. On the other side of things, there are people whose whole existence is about being a Muslim, and I think even if many Muslims don't, some Muslims behave that way, many Muslims don't, they don't go out of their way to vilify the person whose existence and identity is just being Muslim. They might think it's a bit too much, but they don't vilify that action or that behavior. But they do if they perceive someone to be just an ex-Muslim. So I think that it's an important label for the time being, because if we don't have that label, then sure, like, I can say I'm agnostic or I'm an atheist or whatever, and I just disappear into the crowds with the ex-Christian agnostic, with the never religious agnostic, and as much as I can identify with them in many ways, our struggle is unique and our needs are unique and sometimes more urgent and more immediate. And if our voices aren't corralled, in one label, then we might just not be heard. So that's why I think it's important to have that label at the moment. When it comes to my day-to-day life, most people that I meet who aren't Muslims, it's not even a topic that comes up in our day-to-day discussions. Like, I don't remember the last time in person that I told someone, hi, I'm an ex-Muslim. That doesn't really happen. But when it is necessary, I think that it's okay to use that label. And I think there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing edgy about it. And if people can 5 times a day or more, be so proud about how Muslim they are, it's mighty hypocritical of them to, criticize someone for occasionally saying, yeah, I'm not a Muslim anymore. So yeah, I have a lot more thoughts on that, but I hope that answers to some extent how I feel about that label.
Yeah, thanks for your answer. And I think it is a really interesting topic. I think the overarching influence of Islam and in our culture today, in the zeitgeist, I think influences a lot of how we behave, of how we see ourselves, and it's a very complex interaction. So I definitely agree with the use of the term ex-Muslim as a kind of identifier to corral this kind of group of people who come from similar backgrounds together. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you have a lot of other callers, but thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And I will definitely be watching in the future, and good luck to you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, pleasure talking to you today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, Kepler.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Thanks again to the caller. I'm sure I might have some more thoughts about that label. And if anyone has any more questions or more pointed questions they want to ask me, I'm more than happy to voice my thoughts on those as well. One thing that I feel that is missing and that label might be important for is using it to find other ex-Muslims. Like a commenter here said, if I didn't know about that label, Sarah says, if I never heard of ex-Muslims, I don't know if I would have known I could leave the religion. That is a very important point that I forgot to mention. I was surprised when I read that name. For years I was questioning. For years I felt like something's off, and I always thought it was me, something's wrong with me, or that those who leave Islam, the examples I was given and the ideas I had about them were, oh, they were just bad Muslims and they decided it's easier to sin without the guilt if you just leave the entire religion or something of the sort. And only when I actually found out that they exist in many, in great numbers, people who call themselves ex-Muslims, that's when I realized, wait, I'm not a crazy minority who's, not an exception of a lazy, bad Muslim, but also not a good believer. There's a lot of people like me. So that was important from that angle. And also, it would be nice to have not necessarily mosques, but areas where we can congregate and have a community and do stuff as ex-Muslims. I mean, we do try to integrate to whatever, if we happen to be in a country that's not Muslim, I will try to find community with people who have nothing to do with their religion to begin with. But it also would be nice. I mean, in an ideal world, Islam would be more similar to other religions, like the way that Christianity or Judaism are these days in most parts of the world. You can be a non-practicing, non-believing Jewish person and go to the temple and have fun with your friends there and like attend the events and everything. And it depends obviously on where you are. And some places people might still stare daggers into you, and in some places they don't care. But that spectrum is not the same with most Muslim communities. In most Muslim communities, you have to behave like a Muslim, or else you're going to be found out, or people are going to judge you all the time and give you advice about how to be a better Muslim. You're not really usually accepted and to be part of that community. So it would be nice if someday ex-Muslims can have their own version of that, that's similar to it, or in an ideal world that won't even be necessary because everyone would just get along. But that is a bit hard to do when at the end of it I don't blame Muslims for not getting along with ex-Muslims, because if you have their beliefs, I get why they would see us as the villain. It's, in a sense, it's not even their fault. It's the foundation that they're building their conclusions on. But hopefully someday we'll have our own community, and hopefully someday we won't even need a special community that is separate from them. But for the time being, that is necessary. Yeah. Anyway, let's see who else is here. We still have got a bunch of callers. Again, thank you everyone for joining and verifying to be a caller on here. So who is next? ProphetMuffin. I hope ProphetMuffin is ready. Thing is, I haven't been keeping track of who's here to talk about what, so I'm as surprised as the viewers about who the next caller will be. Hey Muffin, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
How's it going? Are you there?
Let me just, yeah, I'm there. I was turning off the live stream so I can hear it properly. My bad.
No worries.
What I before I say anything, I just adore the vibes we have in this, like seeing a community of people like me talking openly and being happy. That just brightens my day very, very much.
I'm really happy to hear that.
And on the topic of like ex-Muslims, I really want us to be vocal, because I don't think that Muslims in general are bad people. I think they're just indoctrinated too much to look at us as human beings. And that's my problem. Like my own mother, for example, she wants to imprison me in Ramadan because I don't fast. She has this misconception about a lot of the West, and especially my future wife, and I don't like that. The only thing I despise truly about Islam is its tribalism, the you versus us mentality. That shouldn't be a thing to begin with. We're just fellow human beings. And I got doxxed before many times, my face, my voice, and I want to know why these people behave like this. Why can't they see us as human beings? You get what I'm trying to say?
I mean, I can try to give you an answer.
Go ahead. I would love that.
Because it's very hard to be an empathetic believer. And I'm saying that as someone who used to be an empathetic believer. It's torture. So if they were to
Mm-hmm.
see you as a person, as a human being, they have to live with the miserable realization that you're going to hell forever. But if they see you as a bad person who deserves it, then, I mean, on one hand, they might even gain pleasure from knowing that you're going to hell forever. So it turns from something that's hurtful to them to something that's pleasurable to them. And on the other hand, I don't know, it justifies them. I mean, if you're the bad person who's going to hell, why shouldn't they kick you, on your way there? It doesn't seem like that bad of a sin, if a sin at all, to kick someone who's going to hell, like if it's going to stop them from, if it's going to, they might even rationalize it and say, if it's going to stop them from encouraging others to be like them, I should bully that person. So you're asking why. I think it's because it's difficult to be empathetic and a believer. The cognitive dissonance would hit you all at once. Why do I believe in such a horrible religion?
And that's why we need to be vocal. Like, we need to, like, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like force our beliefs on them, but like we need to force our humanity. We need to be vocal and very, very loud. Because I have seen horrible things done to friends of mine, from incarceration to forced conversion therapy, and that terrifies me. Like, I want to know, if not change their beliefs and opinions, how could we coexist as human beings? Like, how could we teach them to coexist?
Well, you said force. We have to force humanity on them. I don't think that would ever work.
I apologize. Like, my English isn't that well. Like, maybe I misworded that.
That's okay. So yeah, that's clearly not your intention. So yeah, we certainly can't force humanity into someone. I don't know if I sound too much like a pacifist right now, but one way is demonstrating how to have that humanity in the face of their hatred. But it doesn't mean just shut up and take it, of course. I mean, another way is to systemically discuss and disassemble their rationalizations, their reasoning, their weaponization of language, of religion. So it's multiple fronts, really. Like, on one hand, you don't have to be cruel to them back. On the other hand, you don't have to just take it. You have to show why what they're doing is wrong. That is just my approach, but I don't know if it's working fast enough. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but yeah.
I agree with you, and like the best way to do that is for via education. I'm not just talking about schools. Like, I think everybody should have like a baseline education about like things like psychology, sociology. Like, they need to like know that there's other societies, other beliefs, other ways of thinking, and they need to know that. They need to like understand that they don't exist alone in the world. Would you agree with that? Because I think that's the best way to approach it, and that's the reason why I'm trying to be a social worker and an educator. Because I think the best way to like not fix their beliefs, like to make them coexist and with us, is to like educate them about us as humans. Do you agree with that?
I certainly agree with that, and I personally know educators and people in positions like yours who are trying to affect change that way, and I think it's very important. Education and awareness are certainly on the forefront here of change, because you're not really forcing people to have humanity if you just make them more aware that others exist. I mean, the echo chambers of hatred and ignorance are kind of why people already have their conclusions and they carry them on for generations. So that's certainly a very good way to affect change. I agree.
Yeah, and I have like a message for fellow ex-Muslims. Like, I have been into that echo chamber of like rage and blind hatred, but I would like tell them as kindly as possible to have some insight into themselves. Like, I understand the rage, I understand the, like, let's say it right away, the hatred we have, but it's not justified enough to hurt people. And I'm so glad that I'm changing in that way. Like, because I understand it's justified to be angry at people who hurt you, but it's not justified to hurt them back. You understand me?
It's not necessarily. I mean, from my point of view, it's not necessarily that it's not justified to hurt them back. It's usually the anger doesn't help you, and you're not actually hurting them. You're just kind of shooting, at everyone and see what happens. It's the same reason why I don't encourage people to make blanket statements about Muslims, unless it's there are certain things that certainly do apply, but for the most part, it's more productive to talk about specifically what it is that you're criticizing rather than just vilify people. So, yeah, I think there's more productive ways of handling it. But all this sounds, well and good because you and I can afford to have this conversation. A lot of people don't even get that privilege. And for those people, I can understand why they're very emotionally charged when they're coming from a much more dire, urgent situation where they were put in harm's way by believers. I just hope that happens less and less and that we can do something about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This was amazing, and I hope all the people listening, to have the most wonderful of days.
Thank you. I hope the same for you and everyone who's listening as well. Take care. All right. Thanks again to the caller. By the way, I forgot to mention this. If you haven't liked this live stream yet, please do. This is so weird. We didn't have a lot of viewers today for some reason. We have a lot of callers, but not a lot of viewers and not a lot of likes either. So give it a like if you can, if you'd like to. And that's something I want to mention to the viewers. I love these live streams and I love doing them, and I will continue to do them every Wednesday for as long as I can, at the very least. But they haven't been great drivers of growth for the channel. If anything, they seem to be kind of hurting the algorithm for some reason. I know that I'm not the best at coming up with thumbnails and titles. So if you have any suggestions, or if you would like to help me make these live streams more watchable or more enjoyable for people, please do let me know, because I would certainly want more people to hear the conversations that are being had. So moving on to the next caller. By the way, I just noticed, thank you for the super chat, Apollo thinks. I really appreciate it. About a previous caller saying, well said, Flower. I salute your patience, Aladdin. Respectful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. I hope that the next caller is ready. Mac. Let's see if they can hear me. Hey, Mac. Can you hear me? And how's it going?
Yes, I can. I'm good.
Happy to hear that. Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're calling today.
Yeah, just one second.
No
Okay.
worries.
I'm agnostic atheist, always have been. Didn't even really talk about religion until I was 25. Got into it after that age, got into philosophy and stuff, and been in apologist channels, ruining the echo chambers ever since.
So you've never been a religious person?
Never.
So what motivates you to participate in discussions in apologist channels?
I see behavior from not all religions, but I'm going to focus mainly on Christians and Muslims because that's who I've talked to a lot. And I see behaviors that it's denial and projection. They are totally destructive behaviors.
Okay. So you see destructive behaviors and you see that you can change that?
I'm hoping that I can. I think the key to actually getting change to happen is they have to understand the disorder that is causing it first. if you don't understand it first, you don't know what to watch out for, right? You can't try to watch out for something that you don't know. But once you know it, then you can see it, right?
So, what have you learned from your time that you spent on these apologist channels?
Well, let me give an example. These are questions that I've asked for years, right? These are about justice and forgiveness. And I used these questions for 2.5 years to try to answer the question, why do people avoid simple questions? I'm sure you've seen it with politicians, right? Lots of people, they avoid these simple questions all the time. Now, I developed these questions to see if I could have that same denial and avoidance, but I'm also like trying to point something out, that there's an error in this, right? So what trap questions aren't bad things. They actually point out conflicts and contradictions and errors, right? You can't trap the truth.
So I think I skimmed in the text chat some of these questions, but I'm as clueless as the viewers about it, so I'll have you ask them again. But before we get to that, are you still there, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Just checking the connection. So you're going to tell me through those questions what you learned about how those believers react to or behave towards those questions?
Yeah, mainly this is about Carl Jung's psychology about the 4 states of the unconscious shadow: denial, projection, integration, and transmutation. And also there's a little bit about fast, slow mind. A good example to show fast, slow mind is this question. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. How much did the ball cost? Now, most people are going to have the wrong answer pop in their head of 10 cents because the fast mind does that math really quick. But that's not the right answer. The right answer is 5 cents. But you have to think about that, right? You have to be like, well, 10 cents isn't wrong. If the ball was 10 cents, the bat would be $1.10. That would add up to $1.20. So I'm 10 cents off, minus 5 cents off each. There you go, right? That's how I do it anyway. So that fast mind, it interrupts that slow mind. And a lot of people, if you ask that question to people, you'll see a lot of them are going to answer 10 cents. They're not going to use that slow conscious mind to really think about this. That's what happens a lot with my questions, because I'm pointing out something that I think is an error in their belief, and they don't want to deal with it. They go into denial. So here, I'll read off some of the judge questions. Less than 3% of Muslims and Christians I have asked can answer these. They often go into denial, start talking about, well, how can I judge morally anything, and just not answering the questions. And I prod them. Okay, so we got all criminals are caught red-handed of murder, 100% guilty, show no remorse. The judges apply the perfect amount of punishment, all things being equal, and for argument's sake, there are 4 judges and 10 guilty criminals. Judge 1 punishes all 10, does not forgive a single one. Judge 2 forgives all 10, doesn't punish a single one. Judge 3 forgives 1, punishes 9. Judge 4 forgives 9, punishes 1. Now here are the questions. Which judge is the most maximally just?
What would your answer be, and what would believers' answer?
My answer, and the answer of most people who do answer, is judge number 1, the judge that applied justice every single time, right? Then the next question, which is most forgiving? That would be judge number 2. Judge number 3, judge number 4, they can't be either, because those spots are taken by the other 2. And the last question is it possible for any judge to be both most maximally forgiving and most maximally just at the same time?
Yeah, that's a question that I've brought up in the past. If God is forgiving some people and not others, then God is not just, unless the forgiveness is part of the equation somehow. I mean, what if the forgiveness is kind of like time served, like that person seems to have learned from his mistakes and this person didn't? Does that solve the problem?
But the thing is, the punishment really only gets applied when you die, right? You're going to heaven or hell. If you go to hell, are you really forgiven? If you go to heaven, are you punished?
Well, what do believers answer with?
They don't answer. That's the thing.
So why do you think they don't answer?
Because God and Allah are said to be most just and most forgiving. And unconsciously they see that, but they don't see it consciously. And the unconscious blocks that off. That fast mind, right? It blocks off the conscious mind from being able to realize that this doesn't make sense.
So what is the solution to unblock it?
This is the tough part. I think this knowledge of the unconscious shadow, of the denial and the projection, the fast mind and the slow mind, and then you can't put it onto them. You got to try to show it through somebody else where they're not going to have that resistance, right? Politicians, I think, are perfect examples. Most people can see that they avoid questions and look dishonest when they do it. And you use them as the example to show that knowledge of psychology. And then you start asking them the questions that will hopefully get them to address these issues.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious about the how of getting them to resolve that. I mean, it sounds to me partly like cognitive dissonance, right? Is that what you're describing?
It is cognitive dissonance, yes. And you got to get them to address that, right? But how can you do that when they go into denial?
Well, I don't really have an answer for that, but I'm curious about your experience on those apologists channels and spaces from a very different angle as well. Has it taught you anything about the way that those people, and I don't use that in any inflammatory way, but or derogatory way. I mean, has it taught you anything about how the people in those spaces think or act?
Yes. And really, it gave me a lot more empathy and sympathy for him, because before that I was just like, it looked so dishonest and deceitful. But now I understand they don't see it. That it's not deceitful. They're not really, they have good intentions, right? They're trying to do what they think is right. Most people are. And I just want to have discussions with them about it.
That's a very good way of putting it. That you have now learned empathy from I suppose many frustrating conversations where you ran into block.
Oh yeah. My judge questions I've asked more than 15,000 times. I've had 15,000 responders. 8,000 Muslims, 7,000 Christian. 3% answer the questions.
You've actually methodically written it down.
I have that. I have my sheet right in front of me with all the ticks. My newer questions, the moral questions, I've been asking for about 5 months now. And these ones, if they ever try to say well, you have no morals, you have no grounding for your morals, right? This is when I use my moral questions. And let me get those here.
Wait, I have a question for you before we get on to that.
Yeah, interrupt anytime.
I hope you don't take this as accusatory in any way, but I will ask it bluntly. Have you dedicated a similar amount of time and effort into assessing your own beliefs?
I do try, but the thing is, am I ever going to ask myself a question like that I would deny? I can't see my mind even being capable of that. I need somebody else to do that for me. And if you want to be that person, that'd be awesome.
I mean, I don't think I'm as dedicated as you are in that pursuit, or maybe I'm trying it in a different way. But so an alternative way of approaching it is, do you actively try to put yourself in spaces where someone will question you the same way to give you that benefit?
Actually, I've even put that in a lot of my comments where I'm like, please ask me questions too. If you see me avoid a question, call me on that. Make sure I understand, see it, and show it to me, because that's what I really need.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's
because like I said, I can't do it myself. I need somebody else to point out my own denials, my own unconscious self.
Yeah, you got to put yourself in spaces where, I mean, maybe your process of asking them these questions would not set you up for the best kind of critical questions to be asked back, or maybe you've heard a lot of them already. But where would you go for that kind of examination done to you?
A psychologist? That's a good question. Where do I go for that? Honestly, I don't think many people really understand what I'm trying to say here. Like, a lot of people know about Carl Jung's psychology with the shadow, denial, and projection and everything. But I've never heard anybody actually have a way to expose it. And you can do that with the right question, right?
Do you hope, like, if you could snap your fingers and it happens, do you hope that someone would subject you to the same questions? And I don't say subject you in a mean kind of way, but
they can do it meanly. I don't care. I want that. I want it mean, nice, whatever way you want to do it. I want it, because I want to help other people with this unconscious stuff, but I really want it in myself too. Because I think that it happens to everybody.
I think I could personally relate to that. I had a phase where I wasn't as methodically asking these sorts of questions, but I had a phase where I was trying to engage people in such conversations because I want them to pick my brains. I want to find the blind spots that I'm not aware of and the cognitive dissonance that I'm not aware of. And I'm open to people doing that on these live streams as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a conundrum. Like, where do you go? Because I'm sure if you're that dedicated to that pursuit for other people, I'm sure you would doubly appreciate it to be done to you.
Yes.
So do you feel frustrated that it hasn't happened yet?
I was for like 2 years, but it's become numb.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you have a belief, like if someone were to ask you the same sorts of questions, what topic or what belief would it be about?
That's the thing. And I've often like said some of my beliefs so that to give people something to go off. Like, I think money is a bad thing. That's something that a lot of people are disagreeing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ownership, same thing. What are some other things I believe? Evolution, but I mean, well.
Have you ever, and I'm not familiar with that as a concept, but have you ever joined a debate club?
No. Dropped out of school in grade 10.
Okay.
They didn't let me go to the school that I wanted to. They said my tests were too high, and I just got really mad and said, screw you then.
That's an interesting reason to deny someone.
Well, the school that I wanted to go to was it was kind of a remedial school, but the trades, like, everybody came out of there with wicked jobs and trades. My whole family's like a bunch of welders and carpenters and construction workers. I wanted to do trades, and then the school was like, you can't go there. I was like, what?
That is odd. Yeah, I'm sorry that happened. Well,
I think it's a good thing.
You do?
Yep. I came out of school and I just kept on learning on my own.
Yeah. I'm glad it worked out in that case. Well, I wonder if there's not a high school, but an adult equivalent of debate clubs. Like, I'm sure if that's not a thing, that should be a thing. I mean, have you heard of? I'm sure you've heard of that channel, Modern Day Debates.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I leave. That's why my comments, I don't go up to like random Muslims and Christians in the street to ask these questions. I don't see that as a good thing. I try to stick to apologist and debate channels because I think that's more of an appropriate place for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you ever considered participating?
Oh yeah, I try. I was on Hamza's den a couple times. He kicked me off.
Oh, interesting. Do you
He
think
did not
that
want to
it
answer
was,
the questions?
Huh. Well, I'm sure that you're inclined to believe in it, and I don't doubt you at the moment that that is the reason. But do you feel like from that conversation, those conversations that you had on Hamza's Den, you could have tailored the conversation differently? I'm not saying that you were wrong morally in your questioning. Do you think you could have had a different approach?
Oh yeah. No, I screwed up big time.
Well, what did you learn from that?
For myself, I learned that I cannot be that aggressive.
Right. Like, do you think that you were morally incorrect in any of your positions or questions or methods?
No. I gave him the judge questions. That's the ones that I used on him. He wouldn't answer them.
So if you were to do it all over again, how would you be less aggressive about it?
I would go and meditate for 5 minutes first, calm myself down, and then I would try to maintain that calm. That's about all I could do.
Well, one suggestion from a commenter here.
See that?
Yeah, Top says you could start a Discord or something and build the environment yourself.
Well, I'm actually getting ready to start my own YouTube channel into this.
Okay,
but what I really want, what I really want is I need more input from other people as well. First, I want to make sure that I know my stuff good. I don't want to just post a video real quick and then later on I'm like, that was wrong. That might still happen.
I'll tell you something as someone who's been doing this for a few years and also feels the exact same way. I feel right now like I've been stuck. I haven't published a video in several weeks, like a video, not a live stream. And my reasoning is I want to be sure, I want to make sure that I know everything perfectly well. And had I been that way from the beginning, I would have never published a single video. So there's nothing wrong with being wrong, especially that you're not making some huge decisive, judgment on something. You're stating your opinion, and if you happen to be wrong, you can go back and dissect that video and explain to people why you were wrong. So try not to overthink it, just do it.
I know, actually, that is some advice that I got from Veritasium's video, and it was also, he had Mr. Beast on his video too, and that's what Mr. Beast's advice is. Just don't worry about that. Just hammer out videos. That's what you got to do.
I mean, yeah, that's another side of the advice too, is for YouTube, you just got to publish, but that's not exactly what I was talking about, but that's also valid. But yeah, you got to build some momentum, not just for the algorithm, but for you to feel like you can. And I'm sure you already know of street epistemology, but that would be very interesting if you can actually take it to the street and have those conversations.
Yeah, I know.
Or
I just don't want to go out to the street and bother people that are just trying to live their day. That's the only problem I have with that one.
Here's something that I used to do on TikTok before I got kicked off a few times. Live stream on TikTok, and anyone with over 1,000 followers, which is like most people these days apparently, you can live stream if you have 1,000 followers. So you got to work up a little bit to that. And then anyone can join your live stream. Just spontaneously they're scrolling and they see this guy with maybe like a sign behind them that says, change my mind about this or discuss with me this, and people will join. So that's an interesting way to do it, so that it's similar to approaching someone on the street, except they're seeing you and they decide to join. So that's one medium.
Yeah. I just really got to start. Like you're saying, like A lot of people are saying, I just got to go after it. Got to do it.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to ask me or anything that you wanted to say before we go?
Oh, did you guys want to know the moral questions before I go?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. Sure. What are the moral questions?
Okay, so these are what you ask to anybody who says that you got no ground for your morals. You see a child drowning in a shallow pool. Notice that the person is just watching who is able to save the child, but is with no risk to himself, but is not. Is that person's non-action moral? Oh, did everything freeze?
No, I can hear you. I'm trying to think of it as an apologist or as someone who holds that belief, because you're clearly trying to link it to God's inaction, in the face of evil.
Exactly. They avoid this question like crazy.
Well, give me a second to think about it as an apologist or as a believer. If I want to avoid that question but also answer it, how would I do so? Is there a situation where my answer would be, yes, it's moral to not interfere and save the child? I mean, because the reasoning I would assume is it's not that simple. I mean, you need to learn a lesson. People need to go through their life. If God were to interfere with everything, then no one's going to have a life. It's just going to be like putting training wheels on your bike all the time, or is that a life? If you have no danger, if you have no consequences to your actions, and so on and so forth. What do you think of that line of answer?
I don't see how free will, often that their response like that is often, well, that'll take away free will. How does saving that child's life take away free will, though? Did the child want to die? No.
I guess it starts to get into the blurry area of, well, that may be a cut and dry example, but what about examples? What about the will of the person who put that child in the pond to begin with, or something?
But then that guy's a murderer if that child is innocent, right? And still, my question number 4 is about rape, right? If you knew a rape was going to happen and you could stop it.
Well, we need a trigger warning for that, but.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll avoid that question.
Wait, actually, let me. Never mind. The dump function wasn't working. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So, as I was saying, if we replace that example with something else, what would it be?
Like a different example of a child drowning?
Yeah, I mean, it's your point is still the same, right? Like a bad event, why doesn't God stop it?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm currently blanking out. I don't really have the apologist answers for you at the moment, but what is the closest someone has gotten to giving you an answer that is convincing to you?
I mean, there's 2 answers really that they give, and the one is the free will, but I've made these questions so free will is not a problem. And the other one is, those don't apply to God. God is the creator, so he has the right to do with us as he pleases.
I've heard that one a bunch before.
Exactly. And it really just avoids the question.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it then becomes a question of if you're responsible for something's existence, do you then own it, and do you then get to do anything evil to it just because you can? And I think believers would say yes.
Yeah, and to that, what I often do, I use questions. I often don't use statements. I try to use questions. So often to that, I say, my parents created me. Are they allowed to do with me as they wish?
I mean, an apologist would say, but they didn't create you. They brought you to life, and it's God who created you. It's not the same. And analogies stop being relevant at that point.
Okay, but the main thing, that your answer's better than most of them. Anyhow, this is the main thing, though. What that question really does is puts into question how are morals objective and from God when you say it's moral to save the child and God does not save the child, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not doing the apologist justice here, so I'm not going to give you a win just because I'm not an apologist, but I see why those questions can be very rattling. And a lot of people's way of avoiding the dilemma is just to avoid the question, so I get that.
Yeah, they often, like, 25% of the time, I'll probably just get attacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other 25, 50% of the time, it's, well, you'll take away free will, or God is just allowed to do that because he created everything.
Right.
And then you have the people that will answer the questions. They'll be like, no, that is not moral, but that doesn't apply to God. That kind of stuff. To them, kudos. I always say, awesome, perfect. You answered the questions. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you have the motivation to go through with that methodically and for that long, but more power to you. And I hope that you're getting out of it as much as you're putting into it.
I've learned so much about people.
Have you learned about yourself?
Yeah, but not like I still can't dig out my own things though. I need somebody else to do that for me. That's what I'm trying to do for other people, so they can do it for me too.
Well, I hope you come across the version of you, who is out there who would ask you all the same sorts of questions someday. Your other half, of I don't know what the word for that would be. Yeah, like the negative charge to your
villain,
positive charge. Your not villain. Your antimatter to your matter.
Can I say my protagonist with that?
Sure. Yeah, your protagonist.
They're not necessarily bad, right?
No. I mean, do you consider yourself necessarily bad?
Right. And I'm a protagonist to all those other people. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Protagonist works.
Yeah. Well, I hope you find your protagonist someday.
I'm hoping that everybody will be everybody's protagonist someday.
Yeah.
And we could just have conversations where if somebody asks a simple question, the other person just like answers it instead of avoiding it. Could you imagine what politics would be like if the politicians answered every question they were asked?
I can think of a few people who wouldn't get elected. That would be nice. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, 3 questions I have for politicians that they like to avoid. Do you think that if you avoid questions, you should be fined? Like when they're in the House of Commons or the Senate or whatever. If they avoided questions, I think they should be fined. You avoid too many questions, you're fired without pension.
Yeah. Well, not to get into politics because that's not really my area either, but yeah, it's I can definitely see a lot of the same themes in politics as religion can be very political, so I'm not surprised. Well,
yeah. I just like to use the politicians because there's few of them, and everybody can see how most of them are so dishonest. So use that as the example to give the knowledge, and then try to use that knowledge.
Well, I think I have run out of questions for you, but I'm really glad that you called today. This was very interesting. It's always interesting when when I have any sort of caller, but it's a special kind of interesting when it's a caller who's got no dog in the fight, so to speak, but is still very interested. So I'm always curious to know why. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us and sharing what you do with us. And I hope maybe I'll come across you on YouTube someday.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna keep on coming here and every Wednesday, just listening to the conversations. Flower Girl, awesome. Love Flower Girl there. That was awesome. Yeah, a couple of the other people. Kepler. Like that's the thing. I I was never religious, so I don't have that knowledge. That's why I love this channel. Loved coming here to listen to that, to hear people's perspectives that actually live through this stuff. That's great. That's knowledge building.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're here, and hope to see you around here again.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be here.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Take next caller. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, Mac.
You
See
have
you
a
later.
wonderful life.
Thanks.
You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. Thanks again to the caller, Mac. This was very interesting indeed. Now we still have a couple more callers left at the very least. Let me check that list again. Yeah, okay, so we have 2 more callers. Hopefully we have enough time to get to both of them. I will certainly do my best. So StellarNebula, I hope that you're ready, because I'm adding you to the live stream now. Hey, Stellar, can you hear me? You are muted.
I can hear you.
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for asking. So yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to join today.
Okay. So I'm an ex-Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 2 topics in mind. I just don't know what to pick. So the first topic is about like, like what happened in France with like Yabaya ban and whatnot, and secularism and the whole
Give us a little recap of what.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the recap is, so there's a law in France that disallows any religious symbols in schools until, I believe, until the end of high school. And I believe the law wasn't very enforced. So the new minister gave a reminder of how like apparently a bias count, which kind of launched a whole debate about, does it count or does it not count? Because when you think about it, I mean, it's partly cultural, but at the same time, it's also partly religious. And you can't really police people's intention, because, I mean, some people could wear it because, like, they feel attached to their origins or their culture, and they just want to wear something that reflects that. On the other hand, some people could wear something like an abaya or a thub to just to basically represent their religious identity, which is what the whole banning religious symbols is. So why I have this topic in mind is because, like, I actually can't really form an opinion about that, because the issue is, like, the people who are, like, from my experience, the people who are usually a fan of this law aren't usually a fan of it for the right reasons. Like I don't know, like I just, like, it's hard to talk about these topics without, like, it's actually hard to talk about these topics at all, because, like, a lot of these topics are kind of, like, they generalize, but I don't want to generalize. Like, I want to be nuanced, but it's like a thin, like, it's a really tightrope, if you know what I mean.
So what is your nuanced opinion on it?
Like, my nuanced opinion is that it's an impossible law to enforce. In the sense of, like, I don't think the politicians, like, I know the far right is rising all over Europe and whatnot, and I have my own hypotheses on why that's happening, but that's, like, another topic. But I believe like the intention is mostly to make sure that in schools religion never really becomes a factor, in the sense of, like, when you look at someone, you don't really like religion can't, like, I think the idea behind these kinds of laws is to make sure religion never becomes a part of whatever school's culture, because it kind of creates a situation And I think that sometimes happens in the Middle East, because like I've seen it happen when I went to school in the Middle East, where when you have a minority religion and the majority is openly practicing, there tend to be bullying and some other, well, slurs being thrown around about just religion, which is kind of unfortunate. And I think allowing kids to grow in a place where religion isn't really relevant, because, well, I mean, not specifically Islam, but like in all religions, people, like, if you're being raised in a religious household, you're raised inside a religious household. And I'm not gonna say something like, oh, hijab is oppression because like some women choose to wear it. But like, if you let children believe that they have the option to be something else, or have the option to not be tied to their religious identity, I think that's like the main issue about it. Like I think it's less about like I think it's hard to express it. Like I don't know if you can see what I'm trying to say. Like,
I
am I
mean,
making
I
sense?
want to ask you something here. You're
Mhm.
saying it's hard to enforce, or it's impossible to enforce. Say it was easy to enforce. How do you feel about it if that wasn't a factor?
I mean, if it was easy to enforce, like I would ask, why are they enforcing it in the first place, and what alternatives does it give? Well, Muslims, basically. Like, the problem, like the reason why these laws usually affect Muslims more than other religions is because most other religions uh, aren't supposed to wear specific clothing. I mean, some people interpret Islam differently, but the traditional or like the mainstream opinion is that at the very least, women should wear the hijab. The definition of hijab is a whole other story, but I'm not going to get into that. But then, like, if you as a government start forcing people to sin within their own religion, then at what point is it um like I think, yeah, this is like the bigger question to ask. Like, at what point is it less about integrating into a secular society and becomes more forcing people to assimilate? Like, I think this is the question. Like, what's the limit between allowing people to freely practice their religion, and when does it become too restrictive to the point where they can't practice their religion? I think that's the thing that's kind of blocking me from honestly like forming an opinion about it.
I don't think that it's. I mean, I don't have all the information about it, but
Yeah.
from a surface level, here's what I think about it.
Mhm.
You can't force people into this. Like, it's.
Yeah.
I get that the intention is a kid shouldn't be forced to wear a hijab from a young age and grow up with all these
Mhm.
ideas about her own body and be sexualized from a very young age. And I know the religious answer is, but they're going to be sexualized anyway, or like the West sexualizes them in different ways. But it's always deflecting from this reality that when a kid is taught from a very young age, you are an object, you're a sexual object of desire,
Mhm.
you have to dress a certain way, it affects them for the rest of their life before they can even make a decision. But the sad reality is parents are allowed to raise their kids the way that they want, as long as it's not showing some immediate harm. And it's hard to quantify that kind of harm, and it's hard to figure out in what case the child is being
Mhm.
abused, and you have to step in and help them. And more often than not, it's stripping people of their identity. It's forcing people to do something. Like you said, that's a good point. It's forcing them to sin. So they're going to doubly not assimilate or be part of that society that is forcing them to sin. All their prophecies about how these hateful disbelievers want to force you out of your religion or coming true to them, right? And you're just giving them more reasons to double down on what they're doing, and even making it worse in some cases. And like you said, it disproportionately affects Muslims, because if you just make a blanket rule on religious symbols in a classroom, most of the time that just means hijabis. Like, and maybe a few cross necklaces at most, but
but I don't think cross necklaces are sin. Like, it's not a sin to not wear them, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not that big of a deal for a Christian to not wear a cross necklace to class only. And, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it is literally the end of the world to a Muslim woman to not wear hijab, or even a girl. Just imagine the terror that girl might be going through. I mean, not all of them, but some of them might be thinking every second, every hair that each person sees, that's a sin, and every hair I'm going to be like dragged for in hell, and all the horrible things. And that's not to shift the blame from the religion to non-Muslims and say it's your fault that the kid is traumatized by Islam. That's not the case. But you have to be empathetic. If your goal is truly to help those people, then you don't do it in a way that will harm them, despite, you know, whose fault it is that the kid has those ideas in the first place. So those are some of my thoughts on it. I don't think it's productive to do it that way. And I think even from a purely cold and calculated and utilitarian point of view, the people who are trying to enforce this are shooting themselves in the foot. Like, this is going to harm you, because you're just exacerbating the problems, the cultural differences, and the cultural wars that you have. They're just going to keep getting worse. And at this point, it's about vilifying a certain group of people. And it's almost as if they're saying, if only girls stopped wearing the hijab in school, France will be amazing, you know? And it's like they're trying to pin their problems on some group, and it happens to be that group.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly agree with you, because I do get the Muslim perspective as well. Like, this is why I kind of struggle this kind of thing, because like it's like, if we're like, I don't know, like, I'm not aware of other secular systems other than like France and maybe the UK, but like at that point, isn't it like, wouldn't it be better to kind of like remove the law on removing religion from classrooms entirely?
Sorry, what do you mean, remove the law?
Like, no, like, there's a law, like the law about religious symbols. Like, wouldn't it be better to just remove that law entirely at this point? Like, rather than giving exceptions, which would kind of...
It undermines the point of the law.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, might as well just repeal the entire law about it. I mean, I know France went too far about certain things. Like, there's a lot to criticize. But I'm thinking, like, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know what to think sometimes.
I mean, I think that the people being harmed the most throughout all of this are Muslim women and Muslim girls.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I mean, a lot of Muslim men are taking this as a point of pride, or an attack on their religion, or an attack on their identity, or their dignity, or their whatever, by extension, you know, of their women, or their women, you know, that's another thing. But I don't think a lot of people are thinking about what the women are going through, whether they are, you know, forced to take off the hijab, or whether they're wearing it. In both cases,
I mean, either way, it's not going to be something any government is going to be able to tell most of the time.
Yeah, it's not going to be, you can't make a rule about it.
I agree. Okay.
Like, if they really want to affect change, what they could do is offer more resources, or invest more in resources for people who actively seek out help in those situations. Like, if a girl is wearing the hijab and doesn't want to, and goes and tells a teacher about it, for example, make sure that there's a way to get that girl some kind of help, rather than put a rule that no girls can wear the hijab in school. If that's truly their intention, is to help Muslims assimilate, then look for those among them who don't want to behave like the uniform, like try to help those people. That's just one way that they could do better.
Yeah. I actually never thought about the idea of funding help for that aspect instead. Yeah, I actually never thought about that.
I mean, say you're a girl who doesn't want to wear the hijab, and
Yeah.
now what can you do? Because now the school or the government or whoever, the non-Muslims, are actually the enemy. They're trying to strip you of your hijab. Now you feel guilty for not wanting to wear it in the first place because the Muslims were right. And you feel bad, like you almost fell for it. You almost fell for the anti-hijab propaganda. How dare you want to take it off? So
Yeah, the
things are
straw
just
man
worse.
basically is valid, pretty
Yeah.
much. Like the straw man ended up not being the straw man after all.
Yeah, I mean,
In a
good job to
sense.
them. Like they've
Yeah.
handed them a new weapon on a silver platter, a new talking point, and in the meantime, the women are just the pawns in all of this.
Yeah. That's appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Of course. Honestly, I've been too intimidated to look into, like, on one hand, I've been too stressed to look into it because I feel like it's just another problem that I will have to take on without actually doing anything about. And then I felt like I'm not that important of a person to come out and be like, hey, listen up, everybody, I have some thoughts about it. So thanks for bringing it up and getting me out of that shell.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Like, I thank you for your perspective as well. Like, it's nice having like an outside perspective for these sorts of topics because, like, I mean, I don't know outside in what way, but like, it's not the kind of topic I would discuss with anyone because, like, I mean, I don't tell people I'm ex-Muslim, so I mean, how would I like? People would kind of like jump to conclusion if I start saying, oh, maybe like just like not validating the mainstream of opinion of, oh, those non-Muslims are oppressive, basically. If you know what I mean, like
yeah, if you give any, if you try
indication.
to say anything except France sucks and Islam is great and Allahu Akbar, then they will sniff you out as like there's something suspicious about you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I hope that, I don't know, if I have big enough of a platform someday in a situation like this, I can effectively reach out to specifically hijabis in France and have a conversation with them and ask them, what do you think of all this? Unfortunately, I don't think I have that kind of reach at the moment, but I know a channel that is more in touch with that, so I should reach out to them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Thanks for the idea, I suppose.
No problem. I don't know. I don't know if I spend too much time. Like, I might have a second topic in mind.
Sure, yeah. I believe you're our last caller today,
Oh,
so
okay.
we could talk about
Perfect.
one more topic before we go.
Okay. It's kind of related to where I'm at with being ex-Muslim and whatnot, like the stage I'm at, and kind of not sure where to go next. Is that a topic I could talk about?
Sure.
Okay. So the full background, like the very concise version, is I was basically raised by a very devout Muslim family, and I was like pretty deep into the faith. Like, I wouldn't say like I went to a religious school, but I did have like a sheikh in the house, like come a lot and like learn the Quran and learn the Hadith and all of that. And like I was like the kind of teenager who would pretty much like throw a tantrum if I didn't like wake up early to go to Eid prayer, pretty much. Like that's how much I was into it at the time. And eventually certain things happened. Like I've seen certain opinions by certain people I trust, or I guess trusted, and it made me rethink the religion. Like it was related to like depiction of the prophet and stuff like that. So I was thinking, I mean, those people weren't Muslim, so we can't really judge them for our religion, like according to our religious laws, and definitely not like condone their deaths. So I was like extremely confused. And yeah, from there I went deep into researching the religion, and eventually I left it. And yeah, just last year, or well, it's the second year now. I actually like left the Middle East. Like I don't live with my parents anymore. Uh, I kind of like I still talk to them. I have siblings. I have a brother and like a few sisters. And I mean, I don't have the most healthy family. Like my family's pretty toxic. Like I get into fights with them all the time. Even now that like I'm mostly independent, like I'm pretty independent right now, but at the same time, like it's kind of hard to kind of know whether it's valid to like distance myself further from a toxic family. Like I don't want to get too into what happened between me and my family due to it potentially being identifiable due to like it being too specific, but I just don't know whether I'm better off actually just telling them who I truly am, because like it's not that I don't care if I say like inshallah or alhamdulillah or stuff like that over the phone call. Like it's more how I have to purposely be the whole ghira, toxic masculinity over the phone and towards my sisters and towards like encourage my brother. Otherwise, my parents would reprimand me and stuff like that. Like I don't want to pretty much intervene religiously to be like a fundamentalist Islamic influence when I'm not even Muslim. And I feel extremely bad when it's like pushed on me to be the role of telling uh like of telling my brother, oh, you shouldn't be the youth, because I know behind it, if I don't say that, like it's a whole drama with my family again. So I feel like at one point it's probably better off just, I don't know, like just push them away, like just stop. Like it feels like it makes me like feel like I'm not myself. And even when I see my parents, like when I go back home, not in the country, like not in the Middle East, but I mean like when I see my parents and then go back home, I feel like I'm become a completely different person, and I just don't like the kind of person that I am. And it takes me like months, like not really months. Like I've gone to therapy, so it doesn't take that much time anymore. But it takes me at least a month or maybe two to just fully process it, and I guess like go back to my normal personality, if that makes sense. And like I just don't know anymore whether it's even worth it to just keep appearances and just make sure there's no drama, or if it's even better off to just, I guess, stop and I guess like just burn the like I at least like tell the truth. And I mean I'm far away enough, like I'm 12 hours away from them, so that like they can't, like I'm not in any danger per se. But like I don't know, it's like terrifying. It's just terrifying. Like you grow up and you have parents, they're supposed to love you for who you are, and you one day you just realize no, that's not the case. They love you for the religious identity they raised you to be. And once that stops, you start doubting, well, every single conversation, like they're talking to you, but you keep in mind, if you actually talk the way you normally talk, wouldn't really want you in their lives anymore. And I don't know, it's like such a hard thing to deal with sometimes. Because like they're still my parents. Like of course I still care for them in a way, like despite everything. I mean, at one point you still somewhat care, and I mean like getting. I guess it probably be like this own, but like I guess it also means losing touch with my siblings, and I don't want that, so I feel kind of stuck. And it's hard to process, I guess. And yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I've been rambling as well, and I'm really sorry.
No, that's okay. We a lot of people here relate. People watching right now, people who will watch this when it's over. And I feel for you, and I feel like I could almost finish your sentences as you were saying them, but obviously I was trying not to do that. Do you feel like you mentioned your siblings and you're afraid of losing touch with them? If that wasn't a problem, if that wasn't part of the equation, would you come clean?
I think, honestly, yeah. If I didn't have any siblings, I would have done that, honestly, as soon as I've left the country 2 years ago. Because, I mean, I guess it's kind of like it's kind of cold to say that way, but like the way I see it is, if my parents can't love me for who I am, then why should I reciprocate?
Seeing it as cold, I can tell you, is partly that indoctrination. I mean,
guess that's true.
I know it might feel almost like you're out of line to say, if it wasn't for my siblings, I would have. It's almost like you're saying I would have thrown away my relationship with my family, but you're not. You're effectively predicting what would happen, what your family, how they're gonna react to you, not doing anything wrong, to you just telling them the truth about who you are.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't bear moral responsibility for their poor reaction, even though you can see it coming. Like that's your curse, isn't it? That you know what's going to happen, or at least you think you know what's going to happen. So you almost feel responsible for it, even though if it's not your fault. Just that you know what would happen, it's your responsibility to keep the peace or to avoid family drama.
Yeah. It just feels like the pressure is all on me because I'm the one making the action that leads to the reaction.
Like you're pulling the trigger to start the sequence of
pretty
events.
much.
Yeah. I'm saying that because I felt the same way. A lot of people have, but you're not. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do in this situation. Obviously, it's very.
I mean, I plan to see a therapist about it because, like, I think it's too hard to unpack it on my own. I just don't have the means right now. But, like, yeah, eventually, once I do save the money to do that, like, I definitely plan to. Because, like...
I don't know where you are, but if you're still a student or not, I mean, look into... Some universities would offer, lower rates or even free sort of counseling and therapy. And that has helped me with that kind of, questioning in my days. So I certainly urge you to look into that. And if it's not within your means right now, then at least you're aware of what you need to do when the time comes.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not your fault. What? Go ahead.
Thank you for saying that. And I was saying, like, wait, I forgot, actually.
You said it's just the fact that...
Oh, yes. It's just the fact that I know when it's probably gonna happen that adds a lot of pressure. Because, like, I've been thinking of something like this happening for years. Like, ever since I left, I was thinking, oh, it's only a matter of time. Because, like, it's not, like, the current relationship I have with my parents isn't sustainable. Like, I wouldn't say it affects me daily. Like, it comes and goes. Usually, like, it takes one bad phone call, which happens probably once every few weeks, for it to kind of ruin my day for like a couple of days, maybe even the whole week. Because usually it's not one phone call; it's multiple phone calls followed by calling someone else from the family, and then you know how not to generalize, but like this has been my experience my entire life. But how, as soon as something happens, like the entire family knows about it, and then you have other people calling it about it, and then you have like different distorted versions about what you did when it's not even, when it's probably just all a misunderstanding usually. It's just like the inability to communicate that makes the problem happen. And it's just like cyclical, and it happens all the time, and it's just extremely exhausting.
I mean,
Yeah.
let me ask you a very blunt question.
Yeah.
How many of those cycles equate to one disowning in
That is
terms
a
of
good
stress?
question.
Yeah.
It's I don't think I actually know, because I mean I don't know how I would feel about being disowned. Like, I think a few weeks ago, like I've had a difficult conversation with a part of my family, and I think at the end of the call, I just like wrote down my thoughts in my journal. And once I wrote my thoughts down, I just like thought pragmatically about it, and I was like, okay, I actually need to confront them, not just about religion, but about like any other abuse that I've dealt with. And the thing is, like, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel like, it's not fear that I felt, like I felt at peace, kinda. Like I felt like, oh, even if it goes wrong, at least I will be just done with it. Like it's not something that it's gonna be in my mind. Like it's not gonna be something I have to think about doing, because it will be done, and then it'll be over. Because I mean, if I'm disowned, I'm disowned. Like there's nothing I can do about that. And I mean, usually people just say, "Oh, you should make sure you have a support system set up to replace your family," but then my family has never been a support system for me. So when I think about that, I just think like, what am I really losing? Like, am I? Like, I guess like the sibling thing still bothers me, but I'll probably like see if I can do something about that first. But regardless of that, like I just think, like sometimes I just think to myself, is it really that big of a loss to lose people who don't actually love me? Like, they love the mask I'm wearing, the words I'm saying, the fake, the like I'm being a hypocrite for them, and they love me for it. But like I think for parts of my family that's probably debatable, but I know for a certain part of my family, I know for a fact would probably wish I was dead instead. Like I think like they're the kind of people who, if I tell them, oh, I left Islam in person, they would actually attempt to like murder me, which is sad, but then I guess it's part of accepting reality. And yeah, such is the way it is.
You might even feel a little guilty for saying some of what you just said to me. Like that, what you said about, I'm not actually losing a support system, so is it really that much of a loss? Did you ever feel guilty saying something like that? Do you feel guilty
A,
now saying something like
a
that?
lot, a lot. I very much feel guilty. Like I think, I think sometimes growing up, like I sometimes like think maybe I'm wrong for not like leaving the religion, but just like maybe I'm the one in the wrong. Like maybe I guess it's like, you know, when you have a thought and you know it's wrong, but at the same time you can't help but feel it. Like I know it's wrong for me to actually, like I know what I'm about to say is completely wrong, but at the same time I can't help but feel it. Like
I mean, what you
sometimes I
said
can't
there,
help.
it wasn't wrong.
No, I
I
mean
know
like
it
what I'm
might
about
feel
to
that way.
say now. I'm
Okay.
saying like the thought of being wrong in it's kind of like sometimes I feel like maybe I deserved whatever happened, in the sense of like according to Islam, like some certain stuff I didn't do, and according to like culture or whatever, like certain consequences happened, which led to certain. Yeah, I'm being too vague, so it's probably not making sense. But
No,
like the long,
I completely understand.
yeah,
I've
thank
had the
you.
same exact thoughts. Like, am I being punished for
Yeah,
XYZ, whatever it is?
yes, exactly.
That's I hope you like just to remind you that's the religion talking.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's still something I still like. I know it's an ongoing process for me to just process the entirety of this.
Hmm.
It just helps a lot to talk about it because I
Hmm.
mean, I can't tell anyone about it. Like even in therapy, like if you go to therapy in a secular country and you start talking about religion, like how do I know I'm not gonna be just called an Islamophobic or just like criticizing the religion or just talking about how I felt about it from
I
the
mean, that's not
therapist?
even the biggest issue with the therapist from my experience. It's sometimes they can't quite understand. Like they might have a
Yeah,
simplistic solution for you, like, oh, just cut them off, or like, but
yeah.
sometimes you do need to hear that because
Mhm.
sometimes you need that perspective of someone who's not burdened by all the stipulations that you have for what makes a good son, what makes a good family, all that stuff. Sometimes you need an outsider to just tell you things as they are. Yeah, dude, all you need
Mhm.
to do is this. But sometimes it can be counterproductive. It's almost like it's dismissive. So there's a balance in there. Like you need to find a
Yeah.
person who understands where you're coming from, but also reminds you, despite all that, the real solution is this blunt answer or
Mhm.
the solution that you already came up with but feel too guilty about.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, like in all of this, we don't know for a fact how this would go. It feels like you know for a fact how things are going to go down. They might not go the same way, but they're definitely going to be a lot more friction than just your family saying, "Oh well, we accept you." Like that's we know
Yeah,
that's
for
probably not going
sure,
to
for
happen.
sure.
It may not be an outright disowning,
Mhm.
so you don't really know till you do it. And but I understand that you feel like you need to time it perfectly right, so that it's the ideal situation for you, for your siblings.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, man. Like a lot of us have went through the same thing, and
Mhm.
sometimes after all of this stress of years of carrying that potential decision with you, it just happens. You know, sometimes it happens because of some external factor, some circumstance, or they push you into that conversation.
Uh-huh.
Um, so you'll never be 100% prepared for it, and at some point you gotta weigh the stress of carrying it with you for so long versus addressing it head on.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
one is
mhm.
like a slow burn over just like quickly getting it done with, dealing with a lot at once and then like slowly healing. Well, I guess it's not saying it at all, just because I guess at one point I just like want to move on because
Mhm.
I think the hole I'm kind of trapped in is I feel like I have to be ready for any sort of religious discussion with them, which makes me feel the need to constantly be informed about everything in Islam, which is kind of like I don't know if anyone relates, but like I sometimes feel not the compulsion, but it's more uh part of me because a part of my family is like fundamentalist, completely borderline Wahhabi. Well, the other side is mostly, I guess, like more westernized, secular. But I feel like sometimes maybe they don't actually see the full picture of the religion. And a part of me like hopes maybe by sometimes talking about them when it's relevant, of course, otherwise it's too obvious, about the certain parts of the religion that they're not aware of. Maybe when I do eventually tell them, they wouldn't be shocked because I wouldn't be leaving their version of Islam, like the one, uh, yeah,
Like
there's
you're
the,
trying to soften the blow for them. You're trying to lay
yeah,
the
yeah,
groundwork, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like for them to actually understand that I understand religion a certain way, and I can't help it, and because of how my way of understanding it that way, I left.
You
And
you might be overthinking it, and I say that as someone who's had the same thoughts,
yeah, I
because
overthink a lot.
yeah, I hear that, and I'm the same way for the same reasons. Um, it's like you got to analyze everything before you even get into a conversation, because you want to know how to steer the conversation in a way that is not going to end up in drama, right? Like
Yeah.
and not going to end up with you having to have that conversation sooner than you wanted to. Um, But I mean, there's downsides to everything, and I'm not saying that so that you overthink extra and try to account for those. But I'm trying to say it might be even futile to go with that approach, because they might think, oh, so he left for these shubuhat, for these like problems that are superficial and not actually real. The haters come up with these problems. Like, it might arm them to have a conclusion about why you left,
Yeah.
rather than have them ready to understand your point of view. Like, they might just be fortifying their position by you discussing these things with them. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying you might be overthinking it, and you are.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I definitely am. It's not even just about like I overthink a lot about a lot of things, sadly, and it's something I work on. But it's hard to stop when every conversation you have with certain people is you're not like it's not even walking on eggshells, it's tiptoeing on eggshells at a certain point. And it becomes a habit to overthink partly due to that. And I guess it's like related to the environment. Like if
I mean,
'cause
part of it
I
is
guess
for safety. Like, you
yeah, as
think
well.
that overthinking
Mhm.
keeps you safe.
Yeah, that as well, for sure.
It's something that we develop when typically people who grow up in situations that feel dangerous or feel like they could be in trouble at any point in time, like just instantaneously things might change. So you're always analyzing everything that's happening so that you can predict that instantaneous change.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I was about to say I have a lot to think about, but I think that's not the point. That's not. Yeah,
That is
yeah,
peak comedy right there.
yeah.
No pun intended.
But yeah, I think I just need some time, and I just need to take a step back for a bit, maybe, and just wait things out until I'm in a more stable period in my life, and then see how things go, I suppose.
And however it eventually happens, just try not to go back and have like a postmortem analysis of how could it have gone differently, or could I have waited for a better time, or all that stuff. Just deal with the instantaneous as it comes.
Oh, it's like you're reading my mind. Because yeah, I was somewhat thinking about that, like, oh, maybe I will have to actually, because I mean, you can't help it for huge conversations like these, but at the same time, like, I guess it's not worth it. It's not really worth
Look,
it.
it will never go according to plan, because you're dealing with very unpredictable, and just people in general are unpredictable, and it's a volatile topic, and they have a volatile approach to it. So stop trying to make it go according to a plan. Just try to do what's best for you. As selfish as that may feel or sound, it's not actually selfish. You're trying to survive. You're not actively harming them or your siblings by doing what's best for you. Like, I'm not saying go steal their money and run away. Obviously, you understand what I mean by
Yeah,
what's
I
best for you.
understand. Yeah, I do.
But it feels sometimes like you're doing that, like you're committing a crime against them, but you're not. So I'm just reminding you of that. And however it happens, whatever happens, don't go back and analyze how it could have happened. Like, you could have done better, because it's not going to happen again. You only get one family. You only get one coming out. You only get one major confrontation. So there's no use in seeing how could I have done this better for the next family. Like, that's not a situation. So
Yeah.
just
Don't
don't
like
stress
shower
yourself with
thoughts.
that. Yeah.
Conversations.
Yeah. Don't relive the conversations all on and on in your head. Don't try to figure out which is the optimal approach. Just when the time feels right, when it feels better than it used to, or when you feel like you're too tired to keep going, like don't wait till you're completely worn down and then have this conversation. Just do it at a time where you feel empowered and get it over with at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I guess that's the best thing I can do, I guess.
Yeah.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Is it worth it to just confront them with everything or just religion? In the sense of like I've been told before that because like certain parts of my family think, oh, we've been perfect to you and whatnot, and certain parts of my family are also very into gaslighting to the point where I finish any argument questioning whether I am actually sane or not, if that makes sense. So sometimes I wonder whether it's actually worth it, because I thought about the possibility of rather like confronting with religion, just confronting with basically like abuse, like in the sense of I want to talk to you about this, and that, because it made me feel this, and that, and starting there, and then there's actually some communication, which I extremely doubt, then get to. Wait,
Well,
actually, I'm gonna stop
Oh yeah,
because I'm overthinking again.
you are.
'Cause
And look,
yeah.
I'll tell you this: there's no way you can predict how it would go,
Mhm.
and these are two topics that they might link together the wrong way. Like they might start thinking, so you're leaving the religion because of the first thing, or
Oh,
yeah,
think about that.
and not to give you more permutations for you to overthink later. Like I'm just saying.
No worries, no worries. I know.
Yeah, so these are two important conversations. Whichever one feels more urgent to you, you should bring up. Try not to mix them up necessarily, because it just might get messy, and it's going to be hard enough for you to have that conversation with them about one of these topics. Like they are not wired to take it well. They're not going to engage you in an honest and not necessarily honest, but like in a civil and understanding and compassionate discussion, probably. So there's no need to throw in more stuff that they will be defensive about immediately and not really productively address.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that, like, good luck to you. Those are two different conversations, two difficult conversations to have, and yeah, just try not to overthink it. Like this is, as someone who's been through similar stuff, just once you get through it, it doesn't matter if it could have gone better. It doesn't matter if you could have said something better. As long as you're doing everything with good intentions and you're doing what's best for you, that's all that matters.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Of course. And I hope we hear at some point from you a success story in the future. If we don't hear anything from you, I will assume the best, but yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope everything goes well, and I will hopefully be able to share good news in the channel once that happens.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening, and
of course,
sorry for rambling.
No, not at all. I'm glad that you're able to talk about this today, and I'm glad that people got to hear you talking about it, myself included.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope you've left this conversation feeling better than when you started.
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely do.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of hard to find spaces where I could actually talk about these topics without having because I did talk to someone about it before, and the advice was actually because I talked to I have some Muslim friends that I'm close to, but because they have the Muslim lens, they thought more about how it would affect them from a faith perspective rather than how it would affect me.
How it would affect your family or your friends?
Yeah, in the sense of no, their family, like my family, in the sense of I don't know if it's actually a thing, but about how like since parents are responsible for their kids' faith, I suppose that if their kids leave the faith, they have a certain responsibility to make sure they align, and if they don't upkeep this responsibility, then they are like I wouldn't say go to hell, but they definitely get sins for it. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's just that's bullshit. Just FYI.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I know it's
yeah,
bullshit. I know it's bullshit.
yeah. Basically that they're sinning by extension because of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or that the parents might feel, I mean, you certainly don't believe that, but you might feel the guilt that your parents feel that. That part might get to you, and please don't let it get to you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you for everything.
Of course. And
And
yeah,
yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
same to you. That's my line now. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah, my bad.
No worries. Take care, and yeah, take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to the caller, StellarNebula. And that concludes our live stream for today. We went a little bit over the time, a little bit, like 3 hours and a bit, but it was worth it. Thank you to every single caller, and thank you for every single viewer or listener for being here. And before I forget, as always, special thanks to all my supporters, patrons, YouTube members, donors, and volunteers, and everyone in the growing community in my Discord server and on YouTube. I really appreciate you all, and check out one of these videos next if you would like. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.